on the 7 train to Shea Stadium. And speaking of train rides, what a ride it's been thus far this year for the San Diego Padres, who are blowing out everybody in the NL West and trail the Atlanta Braves by just a half game for the best record overall in the National League as the Padres begin tonight 32 games above 500. The reason that overall record in the National League is important, this year in the playoffs, you have the best record, you're assured home field advantage as long as you stay alive up until the World Series. Chris Berman, along with Ray, I dubbed the night in one of your favorite haunts, Shea Stadium. Glad you could be with us. Boy, the San Diego Padres, let's start with their left fielder, Greg Vaughn. That's not the first, second, or third name you'd think of for the Pods, but he could be MVP this year as well as comeback player of the year with 37 home runs.
Well, he's definitely a man that's going to have to be considered. He's put up tremendous numbers, and the thing when you talk to all these guys in the clubhouse, especially Bruce Bochy, is the fact that he is a leader. He's a guy that when you're down 6-0, he pumps you up, and he's an inspirational part of this ball club. You can see all the stats there. It's certainly going to qualify him for being one of the front runners in the MVP race, but his teammates just rave about him in the clubhouse.
It's all worked out for him, and he was almost a Yankee last year. Now he's back to New York, but playing for the Padres and playing awfully well. Speaking of the Mets, well, they're in the thick of the hunt in the wild card race, but, I mean, they could catch Atlanta, but realistically, it's themselves and the Giants trying to get ahead of the Chicago Cubs with a bunch of other teams alive. The New York Mets have kind of gone through a lot here this year, Ray. Now they have Todd Hundley and Mike Piazza each in the lineup. Hundley playing left field. Do you see them turning the corner with the 2 bats of theirs in the lineup?
I don't see them turning the corner, Chris. I see them being a pitching, defensive-oriented ball club. Number 2 pitching staff in baseball behind New York Mets. I mean, behind the Atlanta Braves. But the problem is, they are in that transitional stage. This is something that should have taken place in spring training. Now people are booing Piazza, and the fans here just don't feel real positive to me. I've been in this ballpark a lot of times. The emotion in this ballpark has a lot to do with how the club plays, and the emotion right now is not really up.
You know who's been up all year is Al Leiter. Joey Hamilton goes for the Padres. He's won 4 straight for San Diego, and Al Leiter has the best ERA in the majors this side of Greg Maddux. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by A1, a marinade, a seasoning, a 136-year-old secret, and by Sony PlayStation. If you live for the games, you've got to get a PlayStation.
And hi, everybody. We're going to get you back to Shea Stadium and get you ready for Wednesday Night Baseball. Brian Kenny here in the ESPN studios. We'll keep you up to date all night. Some games already underway. Let's take a look. We'll start off in the National League. It's the Braves and the Reds. John Smoltz up there. Off base hit Dimitri Young. Young, that's going to be 2 bases. Sean Casey coming around. He's going to score 1-0 Reds on Smoltz. John Smoltz with a 4-game winning streak coming into this one, and 9-2 overall on the year. Top of the 3rd right now. Reds lead the Braves. It's still 1-0. Giants and Expos. It's 2-0 Montreal right now. In the top of the 2nd inning, Danny Darwin on for San Francisco. He is 6-8. Rangers and Toronto go over to the American League. Hap Wilson watch. Juan Gonzalez out again with a bad hamstring. Could miss another 5 days. It's 1-0 Blue Jays over the Rangers. Jose Canseco has an RBI. Ocean Tigers, Cal Ripken Jr. He didn't play in the Hall of Fame game. Cooperstown, but the streak lives on. This is a real game in that one. Going to do some damage. 1 run will score. 2 runs will score. Rafael Palmeiro. There's Eric Davis. Cal eventually going in with a triple. Palmeiro also had an RBI single, a sacrifice fly by B.J. Surhoff. That scored a run. It's 4-0 Orioles already there in the bottom of the 1st, and Mike Messina on for the O's. He's 8-5, and he's 12-2 lifetime against the Tigers. Well, game 2 coming up later on ESPN, Yanks and Angels. El Duque on for New York. The Yankees 74-26, best start in club history. Now we go back to Shea, Chris Berman, and Ray Knight.
All right, Brian, thank you. Cal not playing at Cooperstown. That sentence just doesn't compute right now. Padres and Mets, the runaway leaders in the West against the team in the thick of the hunt in the wild card race. Greg Vaughn, we talked about him in the beginning with 37 homers. And you know what? We talk about McGuire and Sosa. He's another one that's chasing a legendary figure of 61. I talked to him about his home run prowess this year.
I just try and get in position to take a good swing. If it goes out of the ballpark, it goes out of the ballpark. So I don't want to just start doing something I'm not used to trying to do, you know. I don't want to start trying to hit home runs. Home runs are accidents. They just happen. And that's how I approach it. You know, I go up there, just try to get in a position, take a good swing. If it goes out of the ballpark, it goes out of the ballpark. You know, if it happens, it happens. My main concern is I want to win the division first, get in the playoffs, and get to the World Series. And that's what it's all about. You know, Greg Vaughn's not playing to chase Roger Maris. Greg Vaughn's playing for a World Series ring. I'm tired of looking at Kevin Browns every single day. You know what I mean? We're pretty good friends, and I want my own.
Well, Greg Vaughn might be a reason why the Padres could get their own this year. I know they thought they could win the West. They did it 2 years ago. But 32 games above 500 before we've hit the end of July, and Greg Vaughn is reason number one. As we take a look at the Nextel lineup, presented by Bruce Bochy and the San Diego Padres, who were beaten last night here by the Mets 7-3, even though the Padres led it 3-0. Kilvio's mother, Veras, is the second baseman leading off. Tony Gwynn, 3 hits yesterday, is in right field. Greg Vaughn hitting in third. Of course, he's had 7 homers in his last 11 games. Caminiti is hurting at third base, so Jim Frito-Layritz gets his first action at third in 2 years. It'll be interesting. Wally Absorbing Joyner, 3 hits last night, including a home run. He's at first base hitting fifth. Ruben Rivera plays for Steve Finley tonight against the lefty. Carlos Hernandez, the catcher. Chris Gomez, the shortstop. Joey Hamilton is the pitcher. And the Mets have not come out yet. There's Bruce Bochy, whose club, hey, look, he managed this team, Ray, 2 years ago to the pennant by just 1 game. Everything has gone right for them, but you know what? As soon as I say that, Gwynn hasn't hit as usual. Finley hasn't hit as usual. Caminiti has been hurt. The guy we're seeing pitching tonight, Joey Hamilton's just gotten hot. I mean, what's scary is this team could be better than the team that's already put 32 games above 500. Agreed?
I agree with you totally. When you look at that staff right there, headed by Kevin Brown and Andy Ashby, you throw in Hamilton, who's now throwing the way he's capable of throwing. You really have, in my mind, three number 1 starters. Hamilton 2 years ago was their number 1 starter. He's been dropped down to 3. But offensively, as you mentioned, when Finley is healthy and starts getting on base, and he's been very inconsistent this year, Tony Gwynn continues to hit. You get Caminiti back in the lineup every day where he can do damage right and left-handed, balance the lineup, and you throw Vaughn into that mix. You have a lot of offensive firepower. Young Rivera has done a great job filling in. Layritz is going to be a big plus for them after his acquisition. But this is a ball club, because of their talented pitching staff, they are going to be able to battle the Houstons and the Atlantas and the Yankees in playoffs.
They got a battle on their hands tonight because Al Leiter from Toms River, New Jersey, just down the road a piece from here in Shea Stadium, he has put together one of the best seasons in the majors this year. The only reason he wasn't selected to the All-Star team was because he hurt his knee. He was supposed to be out, 6 weeks? He's only out 3.5 weeks. Reed went, who might have gone anyway, but he would have been an All-Star pitcher. He and Greg Maddux are the only 2 pitchers with ERAs, with the necessary number of innings, under 2. So that speaks for itself, right?
Well, it does, and it tells you that he has great stuff. The 87 hits there tells you even farther, and then to stretch it on out, the 106 strikeouts, 114 innings pitched. Bobby Valentine told me today before the game that Al Leiter is this ball club. He makes up the attitude that he has makes up the attitude that this ball club possesses. Early in the year, he had an injury covering first base. We don't know if he did it right there as he breaks. He looks like he's going pretty good. Then when he turns right here, it looks like he tweaks it, his hamstring right there. And that, as Chris said, was a 6-week thing. He's coming back after 3 weeks, and his manager, Bobby Valentine, said that shows you how tough this man is.
Well, it's a patella tendon, which is right on top of the knee. And unfortunately, Ray, I know a little bit more about this than I did 2 years ago at this time. And he said it's at about 15% tear, and he just goes with it. He pushes off the mound fine. We'll watch. One thing to watch later tonight, Ray, as we look at the Mets defenses, because of the patella tendon, his covering first base isn't great. So drag bunts, something that you watch to see if the Padres do against him.
Yeah, that's going to happen. With this New York Mets defense, what you have to watch more than anything, and I think everybody's been watching, is Todd Hundley in left field and his struggle to just get comfortable out there. The rest of the defense you're familiar with. Over the weekend, Todd Hundley had a few problems, as we see here. He gets his glove in front of his face, ball hits him in his chest, like a hockey goalie, but you got to catch it. Then he kind of stumbles and bumbles, as you would say.
Yeah, you can steal it.
And catches the ball out there, and Bobby Valentine was pretty proud of that. But he has struggled, misjudging fly balls, and and just having a tough time early in what should have been a spring training adjustment.
Well, Bobby Valentine knows that, as you mentioned, pitching and defense, your best two sticks are Hundley and Piazza. You get him in the lineup, or you sacrifice some on defense, but you get the stick. More about them when they come up. But Kilby O'Veris will lead it off for the Padres, and you know the names, and we've shown them all at the beginning and talked about them, but Bruce Bochy was very quick to point out, okay, outside of Greg Vaughn, what has been really an upside this season on your team? And he went right to Kilby O'Veris, who's hitting .281 as a leadoff hitter and has done a good job defensively. He said he's done a much better job than he gets credit for in the big picture.
Chris, he's a very aggressive player. He's aggressive on the base pass, leading the league 2 years ago with steals, 19 steals this year. Padres don't run much, but he is their igniter, and he's a very positive force also with Greg Vaughn in that clubhouse. Doesn't say a lot, but he's got a lot of energy. Even in batting practice, you see him out there.
1-2 pitch by Leiter, that's high and away. I mean, his on-base percentage, Ray, .393. So leadoff hitter, that's good. It's great. It's very good.
Well, anything over 370 is acceptable. And
yep.
You get close to 400, that's excellent.
You know how Leiter has the good heater, and this one is fouled back. He knows that with the knee injury, that he says he's pushing off fine because he has a very good fastball. He knows that hitters can't, they're not like sitting on a pitch that's 8 miles an hour slower than usual. But he's not letting it go away a little bit more than he would have before the knee injury. So we'll watch how he works tonight. Down the line and backhanded beautifully by Alfonso across the diamond to Olerud, and there is one out. By Alfonso, this side of Ken Caminiti is as good a fielding third baseman as you see in this league, and you just saw why.
Well, you see people that are underrated. Watch how his quick step over, crossover here. He doesn't slide, he crosses over. Ball comes up for him, but he sets himself, and very accurate, true arm here, very much good velocity. Just all Olerud has to do is just catching that big glove. But you're right, he can play some third base.
Well, there's Ken Caminiti, who struck out 4 times last night. There's Alfonso, who showed you what he can do with the glove. We know what he can do with the bat. 4 consecutive batting titles for Tony Gwynn. This year he's going to have to go some, but who better than he to get there? He said he was in the worst funk of, he says, his career, certainly since he was established. Had 3 hits last night, including a home run to bring his average back up to 309, and said he's found what the problem was with his swing. However, this time Leiter solves him, a ground ball to Luis Lopez at short. Gwynn was had trouble going away and going to left field, tried at that time, but didn't get the ball up. 2 up, 2 down.
Well, Tony's always been able to hit off his front foot, but when you get out there and you drag your hands with you, it causes you to roll over the top of the ball. That's something he's never done. He's just been a little bit too aggressive on his front foot, and that's caused his bat barrel to roll over.
Well, here's the guy we talked about, Greg Vaughn. Close to 100 RBIs already. Behind McGuire and Sosa in the home run chase here in the National League. I mean, before everyone gets carried away with 62 home runs or whatever, 50 is a pretty magical number. So he has 37 now. You would say 50 is a pretty good bet at this point in July. Ripped to left field. Fair ball. A one-hopper off the wall. Vaughn continues to rip National League pitching. He's in there with a stand-up double. It's been that way all year.
Well, he's hot. He's been hot. He's carried this ball club. You mentioned all the injuries, but he can flat out hit a fastball. And here's a fastball right down the middle, a little bit down. Very good low ball hitter. Goes down and gets it. That ball's up 2 or 3 inches. He hits that ball out of the ballpark. The ball being down disallowed him to get the ball up in the air.
So the Padres with a runner at second base and 2 out, and unusual fella coming up in the cleanup spot for the Padres. He picked him up in the Red Sox during the season, Jim Frito-Leyritz. Leiter begins him with a fastball, ball 1. Leyritz made a promise tonight, and here's what he's done in his limited action with the Padres. He's always been able to swing the bat and ignite it. First action at third in a couple of years. Says, I'm going to drive in more than I let in. He promised Bochy tonight. A little chopper. Leiter fields it. So Vaughn has a double, but otherwise 3 infield outs for Al Leiter. Vaughn is stranded. The Mets are coming up when we return to Queens. Mets due to come up here in the middle game of the 3-game set between the Mets and Padres. Game 1 of the Mets last night, 7-3 as they begin a homestand against the West Coast teams. Bobby Valentine's Nextel lineup this evening. No one has been hotter in crucial situations lately than Brian McRae. Home run last night, 2-run home run. It's extra base hits extraordinaire, especially in the last 8 games. Gardo Alfonso hit second. John Olerud hits 30 at a home run last night. Mike Pepperoni Piazza hitting cleanup. Todd Hundley is in left field. Carlos, 1 of by land, 2 of by sea, 3 of Baerga is the second baseman. Bernard, innocent until proven guilty, is the right fielder tonight. Luis Lopez playing as Ordonez needs a couple of more days before he's ready to play. And Al Leiter hitting 9th against the right-hander from your neck of the woods, Statesboro, Georgia, Joey Hamilton.
Well, Joey Hamilton's been much talked about lately about being traded, but I always have liked him. You see that 4.62 earned run average, that is down from about 6.5. Has a very good sinking fastball, a slider, and a changeup. He comes right at you. Really good stuff, and he wants to pitch. He's a overused phase bulldog, but Chris, as we talked about, base on balls have hurt him this year. He has 71 base on balls in 140 innings.
And he's won 4 straight, though, so we'll see if he bears down. 9-9 on the year, and he'll open Brian McRae up with a ball. Hamilton works pretty quickly in there for a strike. Larry Poncino, the home plate umpire tonight. Gary Garling is at first. Steve Ripley, believe it or not, is the umpire at second base, and Brian Gibbons is your umpire at third. McRae chops it, takes a weird bounce over Joyner. And just as soon as we say extra base hit for Brian McRae, he delivers, although a little help from the dirt here in Queens. That was a wild hop, Ray.
That was a wicked hop. This ballpark has always had places on the infield for some reason that cannot get level. This ball right here should stay down, hits really hard right there at the cutout, maybe where Vaughn went around there and got into one of his shoe marks. But there's a lot of discoloration and change in the consistency of the infield.
So the Mets with a runner in scoring position with none out, and Edgardo Alfonso is up. A lot of talk about maybe if the Mets are in the Robin Ventura hunt, that Alfonso would move from third to second. Hey, we'll see what goes down here by the trading deadline on Friday night. You know, Bobby Valentine was huddling with his ownership behind closed doors. I'm not saying that means anything's brewing, but went down to see him at about 20 to 7. He said, come on back, I got some stuff for you to tell you. Door was closed, owners were in. I wasn't invited.
Well, you're going to see a lot of that in these next 3 days because they're talking every night, running up to midnight.
Here's a true hop for Joyner. McRae will move to third, 1 out.
Chris, when I was in Cincinnati, and even as when I was a coach in 93, 94, 95, 96, and then the last year before I was fired, I was in constant contact with Jim Bowden. They'd get 4 or 5 of them would go up in his office and stay there. I mean, up until 12 or 1 o'clock at night for the last week or so, right up to the deadline, making deals. The Portugal Burba deal for Deion Sanders was made right at the 11th hour. And these people are on the phones constantly, and I remember Jim telling me just about every day over that last 2 weeks that so-and-so called about so-and-so and so-and-so called about this player, and it gets to be pretty hectic.
1-1 the count to John Olerud. That's where it's an advantage if you're West Coast at home. West Coast club at home, you don't have to stay up that late.
All the business is done back here.
Olerud in his 9 at-bats against Hamilton has had lots of success. 5 hits, but he's behind that one from Joey. And it's 1-2.
And Chris, most infield in the first inning with 1 out, you end up giving up 1 run so that you don't end up creating a big inning, and Padres are back. hoping to get a fly ball pop-up or punch out.
Olerud to center field. Ruben Rivera is there, shading over to left, makes the catch. Here comes McRae, so Olerud does his job. A ground ball by Alfonso to the right side, moves the runner to third. Olerud with a classic fly ball to the outfield. The fundamentals for Bobby Valentine has him a 1-0 lead.
Well, you mentioned the word classic. That was a word I thought of. Classic generation of a run. A double, getting the ball over to the right side, which was an obvious effort by Alfonso. Then Olerud just flipping that ball out to center field just deep enough to produce that run.
Here is Mike Piazza. Of course, came over when the Mets said came over actually a day after they began what would be their 9-game winning streak in May. There is numbers. I mean, after the season he had last year when he had the 40 home runs. I mean, they pale by comparison. Of course, you remember he's worn 3 different uniforms this year, having his 1-week cup of coffee in Florida. But you mentioned it, Ray. They're booing him. He hadn't really caught fire as a Met, except for that first, maybe 10 games and 14 games.
This is the toughest team and toughest place to play ball in America. I mean, whether it's Yankee Stadium or over here, it's a very tough place. Very sophisticated fans. You talk about Philadelphia, but when you come in here with a star label, they expect you to star. And if you don't, they let you know in a hurry.
Ground ball to the hole, base hit for Piazza. So the hitting streak is now 11. 2-out single for Michael. Puts him on first base, and that'll bring up Todd Hundley. Now, one thing that you know is that Piazza's home runs last year of 40 as a catcher for the Dodgers didn't set a record for catchers. That record is held by the man at the plate, Todd Hundley, who had 41 home runs back, not a year ago in '96. So the best ever by a catcher, Hundley with 41, Piazza and Roy Campanella with 40. So you talk about pop, you got 41 and 40 potentially back-to-back here in the lineup.
Well, you do. Todd just needs probably about 80 at-bats to get his stroke down. I don't think his elbow is bothering him or his left shoulder. He had operation on his right elbow and his left shoulder. But watch his compact swing here. Very quick, short, and I tell you, he hit some bombs against us over the last couple of years.
Gets under this one a tad. Ruben Rivera calls for it. He just missed that, Ray. But the out is made by Rivera. Piazza's stranded, but the Mets with a textbook run. Leadoff double by McRae helps them lead it 1-0. Come on, he took the 7 train instead of the what? The 4 train? Yankee fans, they're everywhere. Why not? The year that they've had, hey, maybe both the Mets and Yankees make the postseason. Very interesting. The Yankees you'll see a little bit later on, the second half of our double dip tonight, as they are at Anaheim. Al Leiter now has gotten a run to work with, and he will work on the number 5, 6, 7 hitters for the Padres, Wally Joyner, Ruben Rivera, and Carlos Hernandez. Here is a guy, one of the nicest people in the game, and we talked for a long time before the game, Ray, Wally Joyner. You know, the 1 year he was an All-Star was his rookie year, in '86 with the California Angels, when they won the West. Well, that seems like another life ago. One of the worst things, I said, Wally, that you ever did to yourself, not really, was the first 2 years that he had in the major leagues. Because he was second to Canseco in Rookie of the Year voting. His second year, Ray, he drove in, first year drove in 100 runs, second year 117 runs. People felt, okay, he's Lou Gehrig. And that's tough. But what he is, a
nice play, but he knows that Leiter can't. He just knows that Leiter cannot get over there.
It was like, we talked about it at the beginning of the game, and nothing moved. They're going to call it a base hit. Leiter just can't get there. There's no way Piazza's going to outrun Joyner down the line.
No, there's not. And there also is no way that I find the Padres, I don't start bunting a lot right by the mound. See, he just gets a bad break. I mean, he's still on the mound. Olerud knows it. He's not even going to try to make the throw. See, that's something that you do when you go over in your pregame scouting report, talking about what you can and can't do, throwing over and everything. They say, hey, Al's not going to try to get over there.
This is Ruben Rivera playing for Steve Finley tonight in center field, and he swings and misses. Rivera, of course, came over to the much heralded Arabu deal a year ago. Just to finish on Joyner, hey, Wallace had a wonderful career, and he's had a wonderful season too, but that's tough when people expect you to drive in 117 runs every year after you do it your first couple of years. And people had to find out that he's just a really good hitter. That's about an 85-90 RBI, which, by the way, last time I checked, is not bad.
And another thing, too, in that lineup, he had a lot more firepower behind him, and they had to pitch to him. While he's a contact hitter, and he can drive in a lot of runs if they're out there. And although this ball club has depth, when you're hitting fifth, you don't have the kind of production.
Ruben Rivera expected to do some big things in New York with the Yankees. That was the man the Padres were after in the trade. One of them. That's the one they got, the big name. Doesn't get a chance to play that much, although, with Vaughn playing every day in left field, there's a position closed. And with Tony Gwynn in right field, although lately Rivera has gone in to spell him a couple innings late. Not that Gwynn is not a good defensive player, but he's been nicked a little bit, and the Padres have had some big leads, so he's seen, 2 innings here, 3 innings here. He stayed fresh. And Leiter loses Rivera with runners at first and second now with none out for Carlos Hernandez.
Well, if Al Leiter cannot get over to first base at all, and he made little attempt to do that on that ball that Olerud made a real good play on, it's going to make a difference in this ball game tonight. Because at some point, you can bank on it that Bruce Bochy foul that, and they're going to bunt the ball in situations because Al Leiter can't get there. And all you have to do...
Not so much this situation,
well, I don't
which
think
they're
now.
expecting.
I don't think now, because you'll end up walking the 8-hole hitter to get to the pitcher.
You're right. Saw it off, but the Mets... Oh, an interesting turn by Baerga. He said, hey, why flip it to Lopez? I can handle it myself. So Leiter gets a double play ball, 4-3, with Joyner over to third.
Well, this is pretty interesting here. The Mets almost in a defensive mode where they're thinking we'll play, and Carlos swings the bat, and I think he may have focused on the shortstop. Lopez made a little jab step, and there you got to do is just take that shuffle step, and almost made that a tough play. He should have went ahead and flipped that ball to Lopez and let him square up and make the throw.
But the Mets turn the double play nevertheless. And now it's the number 8 hitter, Chris Gomez, the shortstop. And there's a spot with Joyner at third base. There's a spot that has been much ballyhooed. Hey, the Padres need a shortstop. The Padres need a shortstop. Meanwhile, here's Chris Gomez chugging along. That's got to make it tough. I don't know that they make a deal for a shortstop. Who's to tell?
Well, I don't know. You're going to have to, if you're going to make a deal for a shortstop, you're going to have to go out and get someone like Barry Larkin. Chris Gomez is a decent shortstop. He's hitting 244. Doesn't have the range that some shortstops have, but he's pretty consistent in making the routine play. And it's just something that writers get on, and people jump on the bandwagon, and heck,
Al Leiter said, oh, you're going to get 2 on against me, and I can't cover first? How about a double play and a punch-out? Leiter coming back strong. Mets lead 1-0. Al Leiter, Mike Piazza talking about, well, what happens if the ball's hit to the right side?
Well, as did Leiter and Olerud. They came in, and this is the play where Wally hits the ball. Olerud makes a real good play, and he doesn't even look. And Leiter's pretty close to being there. And from that angle, we saw Leiter get there. So they talk, and he said, go ahead and throw it over there. I'm there. I'll catch it. Just go ahead and give me a throw. And I think Olerud just had in his mind that there was no way he was going to get there.
Leiter, and look at that. They had a shot at Joyner.
They did.
I mean, they may not have a shot at Kilby O'Barris on a play like that. But Joyner or Hernandez, right?
No question.
That's what Leiter is telling me. So Wally stranded at third as we begin the bottom of the second inning with Baerga, Gilkey, and Lopez. 6, 7, 8 against Joey Hamilton. Told you that Hamilton, there's Baerga's numbers. Eight-time stalwart all-star of the Cleveland Indians. Came over in the Well, at the time, a shocking trade, certainly to him. And a trade with Kenton Vizcaino went over from the Mets to Cleveland. In 96. And Carlos, as a Met, has not. Well, he hasn't approached the .330 all-star status that he had with Cleveland, but he said, I think they know what to expect now from him. That they maybe are not getting that player, except that might come up one year, that he might have a year like that. But I don't think Bobby Valentine is disappointed totally with what he has. You agree?
I agree with you. He's gotten some big base hits for this ball club.
Not there, though, as Hamilton pulled the ching on him, strikes him out. Joey's first strikeout of the evening.
Joey Hamilton has a good sinker and a slider. He likes to throw the slider to right-handers and that's left-handers, and that's what that is. He buries it in there right below the belt buckle. Very tough to get your hands through that ball, and it looks like a fastball. You go to get it out over the plate, and it cuts right in on your hands. And Katie barred the door. Sit on down.
So bring up Bernard, innocent until proven guilty.
And this is the biggest disappointment of this ball club when you talk to any of the players. Bernard Gilkey, a player that can hit 30 home runs and drive in 100 runs, steal 20 bases, and this year only 4 home runs and 28 RBIs. No consistency at all with his approach. And when he was with the Cardinals in the first couple of years over here, he was one of those guys, you put him in the lineup in a 3, 4, 5 hole, and he was going to produce for you. And he's been almost an enigma for this ball club this year.
Get beamed a few weeks back by Ryan Dempster. First time he'd ever been hit like that. He's had migraines, but he doesn't use that as an excuse. Hey, nailed that. But Jim Leyritz, hockey goalie and all, glove save and a beauty.
Well, you remember Leyritz originally came up as a third baseman for the New York Yankees. Here he's down there a la Greg Nettles and Clete Boyer. Remember how Clete Boyer used to get down there and almost put his chin on the dirt? But good thing that ball didn't hit the ground. He's used to catching those balls that stay in the air.
Well, here's actually Bochy now out to talk with Hamilton. I don't know if Joey went out with the trainer, pulled something or whatever. But anyway, back to Leyritz for just a moment. I talked to him before the game. He said, hey, I'm used to catching balls 90 miles an hour like that one.
Right.
It's the slow bounders that I might whiff. But if you take a real close look at Leyritz, look at his teeth. Look at the bottom row of teeth when he gives you a look. He's got a tooth missing. I said, you are a hockey player tonight, aren't you?
You should have put a beeper on him, man, so you could have beeped him so he could have.
Now, let's see here. Now you got the chaw going. Trust me, there's a tooth missing. We laughed about it. Grounded into the Mets dugout, Luis Lopez. His last action at last start at third base was as a Yankee almost 2 years ago. And Boat said, I'm a little nervous about this one tonight. But as we told you before, he said, I'm going to drive in, skip more than I let in. One and two, the count to Luis Lopez. Done a pretty good job as Ray Ordonez is out with an abdominal strain. This is 10 straight games now. Ordonez out. Lopez, hey, he's hitting .280, and he made a play last night, although his average will fall down a little bit there. Pretty strong inning for Joey Hamilton with a little help from Leyritz. 2 Ks for Joey, 1-0 Mets.
Kenny back here at the ESPN studios. Mitsubishi takes us to Cincinnati, and this is pretty interesting, fellas. Heads up, Ryan Klesko making the play here. Braves and Reds, 1-0 Reds. Klesko to throw, Chipper Jones. The tag, and does the foot come off there? Now Brett Boone, but now watch. John Smoltz in there, tossed out of the game. He bumped feet with Hunter Wendelstedt, and he's gone. Bobby Cox also gone.
Wow. Wow.
Bub's feet?
I don't know what's going on.
Wow. Well, Smoltzy out, Coxey gone. Greg Vaughn due up fourth here as we begin at the bottom of the order. Joey Hamilton, then Barris and Tony Gwynn. Joey Hamilton as a hitter has had an interesting career. There you see he started 0 for 57. But since then, starting after he got his first base hit, which, by the way, was against the Mets a couple of years ago, he's hit 4 home runs, including 1 this year against the Dodgers on July 12th, right after the All-Star break. Joey Hamilton is the only major league player to hit a home run in a ballpark in a major league game, not in the United States or Canada. He hit one in that Mexico series. He's the only one. Babe Ruth didn't do it. I don't mean on a barnstorming tour.
But that was the only time
Well, hey.
they've ever played outside Canada or the United States.
Well, he's the only one that went deep in that 3-game series.
Well, you did some serious digging on that.
Well, hey, this is what I'm here for. So until they go back there, are they playing, I don't know, anywhere? I know not going deep there. Leiter worked him away, and Al would strike out number 2 on the night. Imagine 0 for 57. And then, as I say, he's become, you saw it since then, he's hitting about a 150 clip. I mean, that's pretty respectable. Next time we come around, I got an 0 for story that another one you'll enjoy. It involves this ballpark. But I'll save it. I can only unload so much per half inning.
Yeah, we don't let our stories get in the way of the game.
No,
the game get in the way of our story.
Leiter starts with a fastball. Outside corner to Veras. Veras grounded to third base to begin the game. And a nice play by Alfonso. How about the grit of Al Leiter here? I mean, again, you talked to Bobby Valentine. I talked to Al before the game. And well, he poo-poos it, but they expected him to be out a full another 3 weeks. In other words, not even be back yet. And here he is. He has not had a bad start all year. He's got an ERA of under 2.
Well, he goes to the post. The last 3 years, he's averaged right at 200 innings.
By the way,
watch his motion here. Just nice and tight. Long leg swing. Stays pretty much straight up. Stretches way out there. Follows through. Squares up. Ready to field the ball.
but he fears no evil as he punches out Veras here. Remember, he was the starter in Game 7 of the World Series. Not that many people could say that. He pitched pretty darn well.
Well, he does have that real good fastball and cutter, and he's gotten to be more consistent with location. There's a fastball down in the strike zone. Kilvio, I don't know what he was looking for. He looked like he was trying to find somebody to dance with up there.
3 straight strikeouts for Leiter, and now he'll face one of the toughest men ever to strike out, Tony Gwynn.
Big thing in Al Leiter is in 95 and 96, he walked 108 batters and 119 batters in 91 last year. I see him much more around the plate, a lot more ahead of the hitters, and as a result of that, his ERA is going to go down. A lot of his runs when he had the ERA last year, 4.34, was due to the fact he put so many runners on base via walk.
Gwynn hits this one a long way to the gap in left center field. That will be a one-hopper against the wall. Tony into second base with a double. So much for not going to left field. That one had some smoke on it. So Gwynn, who hit a home run last night and had 3 hits, to jump out of a funk. And anytime he's not hitting 300 in a 2-week span, it's a funk.
Watch how he stays inside the baseball, meaning that he pulls his hands in and he gets the bat barrel out. He does not roll the bat barrel over. That's why he hits the ball so crisply, so consistently. Drives that ball out there about 365 feet off the wall. You see him do it time and time again. When he's pulling the ball is when he's trying to do too much.
The Padres have had 2 doubles in this game, one by Gwynn, one by this man, Greg Vaughn. Both have come with 2 outs. Vaughn was stranded. Now can Vaughn drive Gwynn in with 2 outs?
Well, I don't give Vaughn a whole lot to hit right here. You're up by 1 run, and he can put the other team on top of you in a heartbeat. First base open, even though we're in just the 3rd inning of a ball game. You don't want to give in to Greg Vaughn here. You pitch him tough, and if he gets on, he gets on, but you don't go at him.
He did right there.
He did. And I think that Al Leiter has good enough stuff to go at anybody. I mean, you talk about Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, those type people. This man has probably as good a stuff as any left-hander in the league when you look at velocity. That ball is just right down the middle. He's just a little tardy.
Tell you, even though that was a heater and Vaughn didn't get around on it, Gerto Alfonso is just about a step and a half off that third base line at third. They look for Vaughn to yank it down the line. Look, he doesn't go there till Leiter gets on the rubber, but not a lot of room to squeeze it through there, Ray.
No, there isn't, and that surprises me a little bit. I think you probably need to go away with Vaughn and don't pound him inside too much. If you pound him inside, you have to get him inside enough that he hits that ball foul. But I'm sure that in the scouting reports against Al Leiter that Alfonso's playing exactly where he hits the majority of the ground balls.
Well, Leiter got a break there. The check swing off the bat, so the count is 1-2. Gwynn at second base. Mets lead at 1-0. Remember, they, you know, Leiter, Toronto, Vaughn, Milwaukee. There's a history here. Fastball high and outside, 2-2. So 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. The runner at the tooth base.
Well, he's got 2 choices here. He's either going to bury the slider down and in on him hard, or he's going to go back outside with the changeup. Let's see what he does. Fastball in, 2-3, changeup. Looks like he's probably going to go in. Yep.
Too high, though, and the count is full.
Well, he does not want, and you can't say this too much, you cannot let the best hitter in the lineup beat you with first base open this early in the ballgame.
And a guy like Ken Caminiti not in the game,
Right,
although Leyritz swings a good bat, he's not Caminiti. Three-two pitch. He did. He worked him carefully. That was a pretty good pitch. Vaughn didn't bite, was very patient. And so now the Padres with 2 outs of runners at first and second for Jim Leyritz, who tapped back to Leiter to end the first inning with Vaughn at second base. So Vaughn's been aboard twice to continue his season of superlatives. And here is the personable and the man with the biggest hit in the World Series 2 years ago. A 3-run home run off Wohlers that tied that wild 4th game in Atlanta at 6-6. Yankees went on to win it and went on to win the series. And he got plunked hard on the left wrist. Leiter wearing to work him in, but not that far in. That one hurt, Ray.
Well, Leyritz dives a lot, as Biggio and a lot of hitters do, and they start off the plate and they go into the ball. Watch how he moves, and his left shoulder goes way into the ball, and he ends up almost on the corner of the plate. That's what I talked about a couple of weeks ago on Baseball Tonight. Look at the big elbow that he has there, the big pad he has on the elbow. But it doesn't matter. When you get hit like that, it jars your bones. Way down in there.
After 2 strikeouts and nobody on, the Padres now have the bases juiced for Wally Joyner. With Gwynn at third, Vaughn now at second base, and Jim Leyritz with his elbow smarting over at first base. So Joyner, who singled in the second inning, 3 hits, including a home run last night, helped stake the Padres to a lead that they couldn't hold. Now has a chance to give them a lead with a little bleeder. Misses inside, ball 1. Wally, we told you, hey, he's a great professional hitter. And look at this year. That's a great job of being a professional hitter.
That's almost, I'm begging for a misprint there. I said, wait a minute. 447.
1-1, foul away. It's just hard to believe that Joyner is in his, what, 13th season? It's just hard to believe.
I was actually on that plane in 1986 that Wally flew to Houston to play in that All-Star game. I was with the Mets, and I had a home in Houston after being traded from there. Wally sat right in front of my wife and I got to know him pretty well. He was from Atlanta, and he'd gone home to Atlanta to pick up some stuff en route to the All-Star game, and that was my first introduction to Wally. And you said it, he's
class,
such a class
and an excellent hitter. But Leiter now has him 1-2. The bases loaded. Big pitch coming up. Fans know it. Pop. Lopez calls off Alfonso in foul ground, and some clutch pitching by Al Leiter, getting the major league leader with runners in scoring position to pop out. So the Padres have had runners aboard every inning, but they haven't yet scored. Leiter says, catch it, catch it, catch it. Yeah. Mets trying to bridge their way back into the lead, at least into the wild card chase in the National League. They trail the Chicago Cubs and the Giants. In that hunt, we get a long way to go, and Al Leiter, with a good job of wriggling free of a bases-loaded jam, will begin the third inning. Leiter, McRae, and Alfonso against Joey Hamilton, and we expect both pitchers who continue where they have hurled as of late, and thus far, Ray, that's what we've got.
Well, we've got two pitchers that aren't afraid of bats. They go at people. They don't try to pitch around people.
Not afraid of that door either. Katie barred the door here at Shea Stadium. Both work pretty quickly. They both know what they're trying to do out there, especially with Hamilton seemingly finding himself. I don't know what happened there. It went between Poncino's legs. Let's see. Watch this. I think that pitch was low.
What is Hernandez thinking? Good thing it was low.
Kind of a little chopper. Count is 2-2. Yeah, there you, I mean, talked about hockey tonight. Carlos definitely looked like he could kick out 47 shots tonight, although Hamilton just lit the lamp on that one. The one got by him.
I don't think he'd have a chance as a goalie now.
Yeah, maybe not. That was an Olay job on that. Leiter staying alive. Al this year is sitting at 121 with the 4 hits and 33 at bats. That's 4 RBIs. And yeah, he fouled off a couple of pitches. Watched the ball sail between the umpire's legs, and he's drawn a base on balls. Sunday Night Baseball. Big names like Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter, and Tito Martinez, and it's even a best record in the league. The Yankees against their old nemesis, Junior, A-Rod, and the Mariners. 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday night. Now, as Brian McRae leads off, Randy Johnson slated to pitch that game against David Cone. Will Randy Johnson pitch for the Mariners or the Yankees?
Good point.
Good pitch by Hamilton. McRae guessed wrong, was behind at strike 1.
I just don't think Seattle they're going to do themselves any good if they keep Randy Johnson. They need to upgrade that minor league system, upgrade their pitching, upgrade their ball club. And Randy Johnson's not going to be there next year, so you better make. And they got too many people to jump over.
McRae curling one down the left field line. Greg Vaughn is over in foul ground, makes the catch. Leiter will get back to first as 1 out. But you know what, Ray? Here's the problem. Seattle, although they lost last night to Cleveland in a rematch with Nagy and Johnson, which was shown up in it, they're only 9 out. Now, they were like, what, 17? I mean, look, I know there's still 9 below 500. But, you know, the Angels and Texas are in reverse right now. So it's make their dilemma a little tougher because if they catch up 5 games a month, they win the pennant.
It's tough to do when you're behind 2 clubs, though. I mean, really tough to do. 9 games to make up. I mean, you can make up 9 games. We once made up 11 games at the All-Star break with Cincinnati catching Houston. But when you've got 2 clubs ahead of you, Anaheim and Texas, you think that one of those clubs will at least make a trade to improve themselves. And I just don't see it. I see them 9 games under 500. They still are trailing Boston in the wild card race. And I just don't think they have a legitimate, unless they go 35 and 15.
Well, they caught up on the Angels once before a few years ago. Alfonso with the pop out to second base, and now here is John Olerud. Olerud driving in the Mets run with a sac fly to center in the first inning, driving in Brian McRae, who doubled. As you check out the deals, the White Sox and Cubs with a minor deal. Not quite a Sammy Sosa intra-city trade, but yet a trade off the glove of Hamilton. Bobbled, and then Gomez, he tagged the base with his glove. The problem is he had the ball in his bare hand. He finally got it right because Leiter wasn't exactly bearing down on second. It's still a 1-0 game.
Oh, wait, Joe.
ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Kelly Tires. A good deal on a great tire. 1-0 game here at Press Row and Shea Stadium. As the Padres have certainly a lot to write home about for them this season, and the Mets, them as well. They've been in the news where they make another blockbuster. Hard to make blockbuster after blockbuster trades. Getting Mike Piazza is a pretty big one. Al Leiter has had a blockbuster season, and he works the fourth inning to Rivera, Hernandez, and Gomez with a 1-0 lead. Ruben Rivera a little ahead of that pitch, and it's foul ball. Rivera, Hernandez, Gomez, 6, 7, 8 tonight with Caminetti sitting and Finley sitting. It just doesn't look the same, although these are the games, you know, you beat an Al Leiter with a lineup that's not your normal lineup, and then they do that. Now we'll know why the team is 32 games over 500.
And Finley normally faces most left-handers. The only problem is he's only hitting 177 this year, 23 out of 130 with no home runs, so that's a pretty legitimate reason to sit him tonight.
Little check swing, that'll be foul, so Leiter quickly hit 0-2. I like watching the fluid, athletic motion of Al Leiter. I mean, it's a... And Hamilton himself has kind of a straightforward delivery, but Leiter is a real athletic, the most athletic, I think, left-handed delivery in the modern times was, I always enjoyed watching Vita Blue, you know, work on the mound, but I don't want to compare Leiter to Vita Blue, but there's some of it, the real athletic, the kick and the move. Would you agree, Ray?
I do, and Mark Langston, who's a member of this Padres staff, was an outstanding athlete, left-handed. Don Gullett back in my day, very athletic and very fluid.
Here's Mark Langston, who he and Dave Stewart believe he's had his troubles this year as a fifth starter, but boy, they can catch a little lightning in the bottle for a couple of months from him. And speaking of Dave Stewart, what a job he has done this year as pitching coach and still assistant to general manager Kevin Towers. He's just changed a little attitude out there in the bullpen, hasn't he?
Well, I like that. I like assistant to the general manager as well as pitching coach. That gives you a little bit more authority. And as though that guy does not command respect, and I think he's a huge reason why the staff has done so well.
Fastball by Leiter. Rivera waves at it. He's gone. Here's Brian Kenny.
Thank you, Chris. Marlins and Astros. Moises Alou now 10 for 15 versus the Marlins this year, and that's going to leave a mark. 3-run home run, Moises Alou. Fourth home run in 4 games for Alou. It's 5-1 Astros, guys.
All right, Brian, thank you. Of course, and Alou was the one that broke the streak of Trevor Hoffman here of the Padres with 41 consecutive saves, dating over a couple of years when he homered off the first pitch in Sunday's game, tying the ball game. Padres eventually came on to win it, but that broke the streak of 41 consecutive saves with Trevor Hoffman, which leaves him tied with Rod Beck, the major league record holder in that department.
Alou eking in there as a MVP candidate.
Well, as the Houston Astros continue to lead in the division, and an off year for Bagwell, certainly not for Biggio, but off for Bags.
He's leading the club in home runs and RBI, so, you know, but Mark McGwire...
Sound like he had a bad October either.
Talked to Merv Retman before the ball game today about Greg Vaughn and some of his teammates about him being the MVP.
Little shot that Lopez will snare up Carlos Hernandez. There's 2 out.
And he said that there's no question about it, Greg Vaughn should get tremendous consideration. If you're with this ball club every day, you'll know that because of the way he conducts himself and the leader that he is. But when you ask me about who is the MVP, I've got to tell you that Mark McGwire is the MVP of the world simply because of what he's done for baseball this year and the enthusiasm that he's created.
It'll be hard to imagine, as Chris Gomez looks at ball one, McGwire hitting, and we're just extrapolating because Mark doesn't like when everybody talks about, hey, hit 65 home runs.
He's just going to have to learn to live with it, though.
No, he is, but 65 home runs and not win the MVP. However, didn't Ted Williams win the Triple Crown and DiMaggio beat him for the MVP one year? So, as Joaquin Andujar once said about baseball, you can sum it up in one word: you never know. Lopez! Oh, we told you he made Ordonez-like plays. He robs Chris Gomez. What a fluid play by Luis Lopez at short. Dives, plants, fires. 1-0. Lead the Padres 1-0 bottom of the fourth. Are you ready for some football? Saturday night, Canton, Ohio. First ever Hall of Fame game live on ABC at 7 Eastern Time. Cordell Stewart and the Steelers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hey, you know what? That could be a Super Bowl preview. Just file that away. And then, from Tokyo, we'll have the pregame show for you at 10. The Packers and the Chiefs. This could be a Super Bowl preview. 10:15 on ESPN. So, Canton, Ohio we go from Canton to Tokyo, from ABC to ESPN in one night. We span the globe here. So football has arrived. It's August. I'll be in Canton Friday night. emceeing the big dinner for about 3,000. Welcome the new. Oh, speaking of crunch, this one is back. Gone. He's ready for some baseball. Mike Piazza.
Yeah, fans love him now, boy. I tell you what, it doesn't take long to crank him up around here. They can not like you one day, and then all of a sudden you can't pay for a limousine ride or pay for a steak dinner. He got that fastball down and in and just absolutely crushed it.
His 8th homer is Met, his 17th overall. Michael's a big football fan, but we have to pay off all those promos, which they like us to read. That was a two-backer, back gone.
Yeah.
That was a no doubt by Piazza. Look at this.
What's this ball? Down and in, how he reacts. He just knew it. He felt good about it. He actually stayed in his tracks.
Todd Hundley hits it straight up as Jim Leyritz makes the play in the infield. There's one out. Here's Brian Kenny.
Thanks, Chris. Piazza's old team. We got some home runs there as well. Dodgers in Philly. Gary Sheffield unloads on Carlton Lower. That's his 19th of the year. It's gone 1-1, top of the 4th. But Philly coming back. Bottom of that inning, Bobby Abreu went down and got it. And that's going to go as well. His 7th of the year. Bottom of the 4th, 2-1 Philly up on top, Chris.
Not a bad pitch there that Abreu hit out. All right, Brian, thank you. As Carlos Baerga is up. Baerga struck out in the 2nd inning to lead off against Hamilton. You know, Mike Piazza can get in a groove like any other great hitter can. And he can carry this team on his back for several weeks, don't you think, Ray?
Well, he's the best hitting catcher I've seen. And you got to remember, I played with Johnny Bench and Gary Carter, but he's the best hitting catcher I've seen when it comes to average and power. He can't carry a candle for those two guys defensively. But when you're that good offensively and you're able to hit 30, 35 home runs a year, I mean, he's capable in this last 60 games hitting, 17, 18 home runs and driving in 40 or 50 runs.
Well, he's gotten out, the second half got out to a big start with his appearance in the booth with us in the home run derby. He enjoyed that.
He was very good. He was very good.
He was great. Michael joining us with Joe Morgan in Colorado. says, hey, sign me up next year. Because he had those 2 home run derbies. He hit no home runs. Said, I'm done with that. I'll be in the booth with you.
Hey, I was down there on the field doing that for radio, and it was amazing how nervous those guys were.
Little chopper. Nice backhand by Barris, and it's strong. So look at the slide by Baerga. I'm not sure why he didn't run through it.
Well, they always say if you slide, it slows you down. I think a lot of times on a tough play like that, a runner is thinking it's going to be a bad throw, and he slides to get under the throw, especially from the third base shortstop side. But there's been a lot of base running coaches to tell you to run through the bag, and we're going to see right here, Baerga, not known for his speed, runs hard. Good little pick here by Wally, but there's no question that you're slowed up there by the slide. That ground just digs into you. Another look at the head first slide, and watch how he just starts to slow down. I mean, he's almost going he's down to about 4 miles an hour when he hits that bag.
Who knows? He could have beaten it out had he run it, but we'll never know.
Never know.
He certainly has earned, the uniform has earned a trip to the laundromat. Well, Carlos has to bring the quarters.
Yeah, have you ever noticed a sprinter diving at the line? Don't they normally just run them through?
Normally.
Unless they're stumbling.
Gilkey with a base hit past Barris into center field. So Gilkey with a solid single. The Mets' second hit of the inning. They now have 4 along with their 2 runs. And that'll bring up Luis Lopez, who boy, really sparkled in that last half. That was a hell of a play he made.
It was. Ranging hard to his left, making the play. He has always been known for his defense. They never thought that he'd hit much, but as you talked about earlier, Chris, hitting 280, using a lot off the bench as a pinch hitter.
Hamilton just keeping an eye on Gilkey. Lopez swinging through that one. Strike 1. Boy, Joey Hamilton, I told you he's won 4 straight, his last 4 starts. From May 7th to June the 3rd, lost 6 in a row. So I mean, that's hard to do when your team is playing as well as the Padres have done. But boy, if he can right his ship, as we've talked about, you've got Kevin Brown, you've got Andy Ashby, both all-star pitchers. You have Hamilton, maybe, with Hoffman to close it.
That's all you need. When you get to those 7 games, you just need 3 starters. If you have 3 starters throwing well, you can compete with anybody.
And they're talking about no lefty in the bullpen, but Sterling Hitchcock could easily go to the bullpen. He's worked out of there. There's a lefty for him if they don't make a deal. Lopez trying to hang in at 0-2. And is thinking about gunning down to first base, but needs the ball. Couldn't make the play. Lopez taking his time on this at bat. Count is 1-2. 2-0 Mets. Piazza's home run this inning, giving Al Leiter an extra run with which to work. He was worried about Gilkey. I mean, why not? Maybe would he at 1-2 hit and run a little bit? Pitcher due up next?
Not with 2 outs.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying with pitcher up, not hit.
Oh, he may straight steal. He's not going to hit and run, but he'll straight steal in a situation like this. What that does, Chris, it allows you, if he's thrown out, Lopez lead off,
right,
gets him back even with a count, and then you can bunt Leiter over if Lopez happens to get on. If Gilkey gets to second base, they can choose to walk Lopez and then face Leiter, but that then works in the favor of Bobby Valentine because Leiter gets out of the way and you start at the top of the lineup.
Gilkey with just 5 stolen bases this year. And obviously they're keeping a close eye.
Well, he stole he has stolen in the big leagues 105 bases, 237 in the minor leagues. He's not run at all hardly the last 2 years, just stealing 7 bases last year, but he used to steal about 20 a year when he was with the Cardinals.
Bluff's going. Lopez kind of defensive hitting, fouls it back. Count remains at 2-2.
This is a big out for Hamilton here. Anytime that you can get the 8th hitter out and you lead the next inning off with a pitcher, it is really key. He does not want to leave Lopez here and get Leiter up there, because then he doesn't have him leading off in the 5th inning.
Good job by Lopez, battling from an 0-2 count to make it 3-2. So now we know what Gilkey's doing.
Yes, sir.
Vaughn playing way in left field, and Lopez, if he gets it out there, is not going to hit it very far. However, Gilkey may go very far. As the ball skips past Hernandez, he'll end up stopping. As he's going to take a really good look. I don't know that he would have been advised to go down to third base, but Carl's having a tough night back there tonight, isn't he?
Well, he's not known as a great defensive catcher. He's just adequate when you talk to scouts. And they talk about his feet not being real slow. Pretty strong throwing arm, but everyone knows in baseball that the Padres are a little short on catching. This ball right here is just a slider way down and in, and Carlos just couldn't get over there to it. He hits that real hard area around home plate and skips straight up, and Gilkey looking in and just concedes third base there. And I hate to be critical, but I hate to see that. You go ahead and get to third base, and now the next time you throw a pitch, it'll take a pitch away from the pitcher. If he's got a split finger or a changeup, you can take that pitch away from him, especially after he's just thrown it in the dirt. So Gilkey should be on third base right now.
I'm not blaming Carlos on that play. It's a tough ball to handle, obviously, but at any rate, that brings Al Leiter up, and Hamilton starts him up with a fence ball for a strike. Leiter has 6 career RBIs and 151 at bats. Although, I must say, he pitched a lot of his career in the American League a couple of years ago, coming over National League Florida. His first at bat in the majors after years at Toronto was a base hit. That's high.
You know what that's called? You know what that's called?
What?
Luck.
Yeah, well.
Yep. Just a lucky man.
Gilkey at second, Lopez at first, and he swings through that one, and it's 2-2.
And just to show you how lucky he was, he only has 1 extra base hit in his career, which, has really only spanned 3 years of swinging a bat since
Right.
he was in the American League for a long time.
Heat and then heat. So the Mets strand a pair. Piazza puts on the so-called tools of ignorance. And he certainly was not ignorant at the plate. He had the tool he needed in his hand at that at bat. 2-0 Mets lead thanks to Piazza's home run here in the top of the 5th behind Al Leiter. And we go from New York to see New York. The Yankees on their West Coast swing. They won in Anaheim last night, and you'll see Derek Jeter and the boys against Jim Edmonds and the Angels. Trying to right their ship a little bit. Stay up in the American League West. They still lead the Rangers by 1 game after a tremendous month of June. They have stumbled through July. El Duque pitching for the Yanks tonight. Trot out another all-star. Well, he's not an all-star yet, but
he's pitching like one.
Yeah, he is. Joey Hamilton begins here against Al Leiter. Count is 1-1. Hey, Ray. I mean, haven't worked that much lately. 74 and 26 for the Yankees. This just in. It's pretty good.
They've had
74 and 26. So they've played 100 games, and they've won 74.
Like 74% of them.
Just like 74. And the way they approach it. Tony Gwynn and I were talking about it too. He said, we're trying to approach our I mean, here's Boston's had a hell of a season, and they're not even, they're a par 5 behind. So the Padres are trying to do the same sort of thing as Leiter gets his opposite Hamilton with a strikeout for the second time. Padres saying, you know what, we know the way the Yankees are playing. They're not even thinking about the big picture in October. It's one game at a time. I know you say it, but the teams that do so well can actually practice what they preach in that.
Well, they do. They come out with a mindset that they're going to win, and they may lose. I heard a telecast last night with Atlanta and Cincinnati just killed Atlanta, but the announcers were saying, hey, the Braves aren't going to win every day, but they're going to win most days. That's just the attitude of these great ball clubs. They believe in themselves. They know they have talent, but after that talent begins to blend and they become cohesive, they go out and they almost start dominating, as the Yankees have done. Braves are doing.
Silvio Veras, ball down low, 2-0. As we talked about at the beginning, the Padres begin the night, and I know, no one's conceded a division yet, but they begin the night a half a game behind the Braves, and this year, baseball has figured it out that if you have the best record in your league, you get home field for as long as you stay alive in your league playoffs. If you have the second best record, you will also open up at home in the opening round. So, and then if team 1 plays team 2, like let's say it's Padres have one game better than the Braves. Padres have the best record in the National League at home, would open up at home, get down to the second round, 2, then the 3, then the 2.
Right.
And they've changed the opening round a little bit in case, baseball kind of hides these things a lot, to be honest with you. Count is 2-2 to Veras. Down the line, it's foul. The opening round of the playoffs, which the majority of which you'll see here on ESPN, and you and I are just thrilled to be working again, as we did that Florida Giants series last year, which was excellent. 2 at the team with the best record, then game 3 and 4 at the other team, and then game 5, if needed, back to team 1. So you really, Atlanta and San Diego would be the home teams in the opening round. If there's a 5th game, they know they'll have that game at home. So that's a big change this year in the playoffs.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You fight all year to be as good as you can be, and one game makes a difference, and you go out there, and I guarantee you that's going to keep people from playing a lot of different lineups when it makes a difference. It keeps the real integrity in the game.
Tony Gwynn on deck. 2-2 pitch to Veras. Pitch looked high, he went for it. Piazza sheds the mask, makes the play, 2 outs. So Michael is homered, now makes the play in foul ground, and that'll bring up Tony Gwynn, who was 1 for 2 tonight. 8 batting titles. I mean, you just let that sink in. The last 4 in a row. The only men to win more than 8 batting titles, Ty Cobb, 12. Tony Gwynn, Honus Wagner have won 8. Rogers Hornsby, Stan Musial, Rod Carew, 7. Ted Williams, 6. I mean, you start to realize the historical context that Tony Gwynn has put himself in. Not that you just needed me to recite that, but here's something else which probably won't happen this year with, of course, him right now having about as low a batting average as he has had at 309 going in. The last 5 years, he's raised his lifetime average every year. Now, if you've played a decade and you can 5 straight years raise your lifetime average to 340, which is 15th all time, you know how much work that is.
That's a lot of work. Because it invariably goes the other way. The older you get, you're just not able to keep up. And the more pitchers know you, it's been an incredible thing to watch him hit. I think growing up with Pete Rose, playing with Pete Rose, watching how much he made contact, how much Wade Boggs made contact, how much George Brett made contact, and Tony Gwynn are the 4 hitters that I have enjoyed as far as line drive contact hitters, and certainly Rod Carew.
Yep. I think he's pretty much touched them all here in the last 25 years.
Well, guys that are just hit the ball hard every at bat. They just hit the ball hard every at bat.
And if you're counting, 2,889 hits for Tony Gwynn. Oh, he rips this to right field. Guilty on his horse. He's not going to get it. Gwynn, who had 3 hits last night to start this East Coast swing, is now in with his second double of the night. It's like Billy Joel, bottle of red, bottle of white, double to left, double to right. Whatever is your appetite.
Well, this is a fastball, and he gets it right down and in. And Tony, that's one pitch he turns on and pulls. Watch how he strides really short, almost in the same spot. You can see that bat speed at the end, how it just flies through there just to the big blur.
Well, I'm not going to attempt to explain what Tony tried to explain to me, why he felt he was slumping. He felt his hands, as he stood there with his batting grip, had crept a little bit too much close to the plate, that they weren't cocked back a little bit. Not cocked as a home run hitter, but he said they were kind of drifting forward, and he found it by accident working with this man, Greg Vaughn. They went in the cage at Coors Field just to hit, and he watched Vaughn hit, and he says, you know what? I think my hands are floating a little bit too close toward the pitcher, not close to his body. Hey, I'm not going to try to explain, but he picked that up, and he said it's been the difference.
With 2 outs, it's hard to explain it.
The chance for the Padres to try to get it back in. So Gwynn began the night 309 already. He's at 313. Larry Walker leads the National League at 340. I don't know if he can win it, but you know, 340, I mean, that's going to be about as low as we've had in a while. But last year, Tony winning the batting title with a 372 mark with 220 hits. Who knows? Beating Walker. Good heater by Leiter past Vaughn, 2-1.
Up in the strike zone, too. A tough pitch to handle. Greg Vaughn, notorious low ball hitter. Most left-handers are, but watch how he swings with that uppercut. It's pretty hard to get the ball up, the hands high enough to be able to get on top of that pitch when you have that much of an uppercut swing.
Missed the 3-1. So again, even though, you know, Vaughn, you don't want to put a tying run on base, it's the same thing as before. He worked him carefully. Vaughn got a walk. And he dealt with Leyritz.
I don't give him a pitch to hit here. I give him a breaking ball way in off the plate or fastball away. I don't fool with it.
Got it up again, and Vaughn swung through it, so he's having trouble catching up to that, Ray.
If you can keep the ball up above belt high and tight to Greg Vaughn, he's not going to get to that ball. But eventually, he'll stop swinging at it and lay off of it. There, with the count in his favor, 3-1, he went ahead and chased that pitch. If it's 3-2, he probably will lay off that pitch up.
Similar pitch. This time he timed it a little better. And
got it out of the ball was a little bit more away from him there and gave him a little more time. As the ball moves out away from a hitter, he has more time because he has to really get the bat barrel out if the ball is inside. That ball is a little bit more in. Cutter, that's that cutter that is Al Leiter's, I think, best pitch. But he better keep it up around his hands. Don't get it down and in.
Oh, he went low and away. Vaughn went fishing, and the Padres have left 6 men on in 5 innings. Vaughn retired for the first time tonight. Gwynn stranded at second in a 2-0 Mets lead. Stadium, Al Leiter. Some clutch pitching. Wriggled free of a bases-loaded jam and gets Greg Vaughn here in a big pitch.
Look how far Piazza's setting up outside. He was either going to make a perfect pitch or miss there. Got Greg Vaughn to chase on a ball down the way. A little bit of meeting of the minds after the inning. Leiter saying, hey, that's the way to go. Set up outside. We really worked him well. Pounded him inside, got him out of the way.
So Joey Hamilton trying to keep his club close, and we'll start with the top of the Mets order. Brian McRae, who doubled and scored on a sac fly by Olerud in the first, and flew out to left field in the third. McRae, Alfonso, Olerud. against Joey Hamilton. Bryant has been on an extra base hit tear. Here's a little looper coming on his ball. He's not going to get it. Base hit for McRae, his second of the night. Let's single it on over to Brian Kenny.
Thank you, Boomer. Braves and Reds, and it's Tony Graffinino with 2 men on. After Smoltz already tossed out, Bobby Cox already tossed out, and this ball's been ripped out. Graffinino, former Long Island Player of the Year, went to East Islip, where I think another Boomer used to go. It's 7-1. Chris?
Yeah, not far from here. Not me either. Boomer of him. Boomer Esiason. East Islip. That's where they used to have the funny cars. Didn't they? The Demolition Derby in Islip, New York, way back when they used to have on Wide World of Sports. I'm talking in the 60s. The Demolition Derby, Islip. I think I'm right there, but nevertheless. Edgardo Alfonso. And there's a name that I know. Well, Mets fans don't want to see him. Well, we'll get to this in a minute. Gomez, Barris, Joyner had tailor-made double play. 6-4-3.
This is one reason why hard McRae goes into second base here really hard. Ends up just side straddling there, kind of going between him, but look how hard he goes in. Reminds me a lot of his father, Hal McRae, who was as good as anybody at doing that. He and Don Baylor, I think, were probably the best at taking people out.
Really?
Like father, like son.
Hal played pretty hard.
He played real hard.
Olerud 0 for 1 with a sac fly in the first. Won the American League Batting Championship in 1993, the second Blue Jay championship year with a 363 mark. And Brian Gibbons said he did go around. You know, he's in the race this year, of course, with Walker leading at 340, and Olerud is batting fourth. What about Pudge Rodriguez and Jason Kendall, 2 catchers potentially each winning a batting championship? Only Ernie Lombardi has won a batting title as a catcher.
It's just such a grueling task to go back there every day. And, you know, as an everyday player, you start getting tired in August and September. You imagine a catcher.
Ripped to right, center field. Cut off nicely by Rivera, but Olerud is in with a double.
You don't find a prettier stroke than that, do you? He's just got a great stroke, no lost motion in his stroke, hands stay above the baseball. Just watch how short this stroke is. Very little leg kick, and then just through the ball, head on the ball. Just as pure stroke as you'll ever see in baseball. That's just a perfect left-handed hitting stroke.
Now Piazza is 2 for 2 with a monstrous, no need to question, is an out shot. They almost tattooed our cameraman out there. And Joey Hamilton, knowing all this, with 2 outs, and Todd Hundley up next saying, okay, I learned a lesson.
Well, I don't know that a year ago when Todd Hundley was hitting all those home runs that this would happen. You very seldom see a hitter walk this right-handed when you have a left-handed hitter up. And the only reason it's happening, Todd Hundley is still in his spring training mode, spring training situation, being that he's only played in a few ball games, don't have a lot of at-bats. But you don't see too often that a right-handed bat gets walked for a man that can do the damage that Hundley can do.
And Dave Stewart, the pitching coach and assistant to the general manager, will go out and have a word with Hamilton, as obviously Hundley's still dangerous, has yet to hit a home run since he's come back. And look at Dave. He doesn't mince words or glare out there, does he?
Well, he's my kind of man, and you know, I think that as a coach, as a hitting coach, you can do that. You can be strong. As a manager, you've got to let your coaches do it. I kind of did it the other way. I was a little strong, and managers can't do that. You put the you designate the authority for the pitcher coaches and the hitting coaches to do it, and then you don't have to worry about the backlash from the players.
Stu has spoken for Bochy. Olerud at second, Piazza at first, and Todd Hundley up. Misses ball one. Misses ball two.
Todd Hundley, dead red fastball hitter, one of the top 5-6 fastball hitters in the league, and he's got a lot of latitude with that swing. He likes the ball down generally, but can't hit the ball up.
Gets through on the right side. Gwynn is going to come up throwing to third base. Off the bag. He slid past the bag, did Piazza. A very alert play by Leyritz to make the tag, but Olerud scores on a base hit by Hundley. 3-0 Mets. Hundley, maybe that'll little bleeder gets the Mets their third run, and alert play by Tony Gwynn in the outfield going to the correct base because he was not going to get Olerud at the plate.
He wasn't, and Piazza was safe. He just slid late. And again, with his surface, you slide right on by the bag and couldn't get back. Watch his reaction. Yeah, he just knew that. Oh, my goodness.
And I tell you what, the fans had a great reaction as Todd Hundley, his teammates, and everybody behind the dugout with a standing ovation as Hundley now, after doing the job at the plate, has been removed by Bobby Valentine for defensive purposes, which shouldn't be a surprise. Piazza was at a big night at the plate, did not have a big night on the base pass. Lenny Harris, the new left fielder for the Mets, as Jim Leyritz starts with a rocket to right field. Gilkey will try, cannot trace it down. Leyritz, who kind of stopped a little bit at first base, had a chance to maybe think about a triple, but in a 3-0 game leadoff, that wouldn't have done much good. Leyritz made the good play at third with the tag, and Piazza starts out with a base hit.
Well, this ball right here looks like that Gilkey's going to cut it off. He taps his glove and somehow just doesn't get to it. He just needs to give more ground there and create an angle, a better angle, so that he can get to the ball. And as you said, Leyritz running hard, but kind of backed it down. You don't go to third base with nobody out. You certainly don't make the third out over there. His run doesn't mean a lot down 3-0.
So Leyritz aboard with the double, and Wally Joyner sends it back to right, back, gone! A 3-0 lead for the Mets is now his second home run here at Shea Stadium in 2 nights. Home run number 10. Ba-boom, the Padres are back in it.
Well, that's one difference between the Padres and the Mets. The Padres have been able to score runs in bunches. The Mets are 15th in the league in runs scored. They're next to last in home runs. The Padres are 5th. There's a ball just up right down the middle. That's just a big-time mistake. Ball just got hit me all over it. Kind of down the middle of the plate, out away from it.
Now, let me tell you how also impressive Wally Joyner was in that. You know that's only the third gopher ball given up by Leiter all year, who leads the majors. Maddox has allowed 5. Second best. I know Al missed a few weeks, but still, it's only the third home run he's given up all year.
Yeah, when you look at a lot of the starters already giving up 15 to 20 home runs, you realize that 3 gopher balls is not very many.
So Joyner with 2 hits tonight and a home run, had 3 hits last night and a home run. The Padres hoping to do to the Mets what the Mets did to them last night. Last night it was 3-0 San Diego. The Mets came back. Olerud with a big hit, McRae at an RBI, then Olerud with a big home run, McRae with another home run. They won at 7-3. This time the Mets have a 3-0 lead, and the Padres trying to come back. We'll see. Scoring position, Wally did not come through a time ago. But, I mean...
Hey, when you're hitting 448, you got to come in only 1 out of 2 times,
That's,
bro.
well, that's about... So, as they would say in a train schedule, that train was due. Well, Leyritz, you know, he said, don't go to third base. That run wouldn't mean anything. He would if he was aboard during Joyner's homer. Leiter settles down, strikes out Rivera. Here's Brian Kenny.
Well, Boomer, as you would say, the Astros, they have some offense, and Billy Spires here rips one, and that one going back and all the way up against the wall and off the wall, and after having a 5-2 lead and losing the lead, now they're going to take a 7-5 lead. Pete Short, former Met, is in, and he is safe, and it's 7-5 Astros on top.
Raise your hand if you're sure you're going to score a run. He does so, and Carlos Hernandez grounds the first pitch foul. Donnie Wall is up throwing in the Padre bullpen because Hamilton could come to the plate this inning if the Padres continue to rout. Carlos, longtime backup catcher with the Dodgers, where he came up, learned a bit of his trade from certainly one of the best defensive catchers, Mike Novoselic. Gary Carter was there late in his career, so he picked up stuff from him and had some tutors along the way. Ripped foul and wide of the third base coach Tim Flannery, one of our favorites. Here's Donnie Wall. Doing a pretty good job. Here's Tim Flannery, longtime Padre. There are a couple of guys on this staff that have kind of gone through the wars here, through several regimes, if you will. Tim Flannery, of course, used to play for the Padres. Remember that squad, right? 84, the only Padre team that went to the World Series. Another longtime coach, hadn't been here as long as Flannery. Of course, Bochy with that club. Rob Piccolo, one of his bench coaches. Look at Luis Lopez. I tell you what, I know Ordonez, you know, you don't hear about Lopez, but I like the way he's fielding, Ray. I like what I've seen.
Well, you don't get to be a big league shortstop unless you can field. And that's just one simple thing. Shortstops don't have to hit. They have to catch the ball. Luis Lopez has always been known as a solid defensive player. Here he goes, stays down on that ball. And once he gets it, like the most big league shortstops, he throws strikes.
You know, it could be an opening round matchup. But this is Chris Gomez. An opening round matchup in the playoffs, very possibly, could be Cubs-Padres. Which, of course, speaking of 84 with Flannery, that was one of the best NLCSs that we've seen. Well, they may not feel that way in the Windy City. Alfonso makes the play, and Leiter settles down after surrendering a 2-run homer to Wally World. Retires the next 3. But Joyner's dinger makes it a 1-run game. 1-run game now, bottom of the 6th inning. Joyner's 2-run shot has crept the NL West leaders to within 1 of the Mets, 3-2. And a reminder here at Shea Stadium that this copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball. Congratulations to Bud Selig on being the Commissioner of Baseball. May not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be, warming up for the SATs now, disseminated without express written consent. Now, even if you're a verbal 700 on the SATs, oh, and this is ripped in the first at bat by Carlos Baerga, off the glove of Rivera in center field. Every time we try and read something, the Mets hit a long ball to center in their first swing.
Hey, you've got it. All you have to do is keep reading these things, and it's going to be a 12-11 game.
Boy, Baerga really tattooed that ball.
It's a long way out there. You don't see a lot of balls go out of the ballpark at that 396 sign. Normally it's about 380, right around that area, but it really goes out deep. Here Rivera get a great jump on the ball. Actually gets his glove on it, but it's the back side of his glove. Hits the wall pretty hard. The ball stays right there underneath him. Finley on the bench.
Yeah, now that was Mike. Look, Rivera, that's a really tough play, but that's a crash that Finley might make. Bernard Gilkey swinging at the first pitch, moves the runner over to third base. So again, like the Mets scored in the first inning, Ray, it's exactly what he wants to do. Baerga to third, 1 out. It's tough to say, boy, Rivera doesn't make it, Finley does. But you always wonder because he crashes in the wall with the best of them.
I don't think it has as much to do with the ability as it does knowing players and knowing the tendencies of players in the league. Finley could have played a couple of steps deeper, and you know that he knows the league far better than Rivera, although Rivera comes in with tremendous accolades offensively and defensively, but Steve Finley is one of the best in the business.
Finley getting the night off tonight. Leyritz in on the grass in case Lopez wants to lay one down to get Baerga in.
Well, this is a real good time to squeeze. 6th inning, pitcher up next. You don't want to pinch hit for him. And
especially with not Caminetti, but Leyritz at third base, right? Hits it up the middle in the drawn-in infield, and Luis Lopez is my man tonight. Fielding beautiful. Every time I see him, he impresses me.
Hey, and he started out being your man before he did all this.
Yes. Talked about the play he made last night before we game.
Yes, you did.
Lopez with a key single, Baerga with the leadoff double, and the Mets have a 2-run lead.
Well, base hit right up the middle on a fastball. Hamilton just a little slow in reacting to that ball, and nothing takes the guts out of your club worse than letting the opposition come back.
And here's the bunt by Leiter. Good, and you know what? He hustled down to first, and he kind of ginger slowing up, but he knows what he's capable of.
Well, that's the way
I
he
hope the
plays,
fans
too.
understand what he's going through. They just look at it as a sacrifice. That's a great job by Leiter.
There are some people that can't play half speed, Chris, and I was that way when I was hurt. Golly, I went full tilt all the time, and you end up hurting yourself even worse. Good bunt there, Leiter running down to first base, doing the best he can, laboring a little bit, but certainly giving it an effort and pulling up a little bit short.
Well, here's what he's saying as Brian McRae is up. Hey, I allowed a 3-run lead to be to 1. We got 1 back. Let me see if I can help us get the other back, and then I'll take care of us from here. Oh, McRae might take care of it to the right field line, off the wall. Lopez scores another extra base clutch hit for Brian McRae, and the 3-run lead is restored thanks in part to the bunt by Leiter.
Bunt by Leiter played a huge part. Again, you put up a 2-spot, get within 3-2, and then the opposition comes up and tacks 2 right back on. That takes the heart right back out of your ball club. Bruce Bochy coming out to the mound, making a double change, double switch.
Yeah, Bochy will make the move. Looks like we got a new shortstop. Will be Andy Sheets. Hamilton will come out. Scott Sanders will come to the mound. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Discovery, taking you everywhere for 50 years. Joey Hamilton had seen his team battle back to within 1 run, but he could not keep it that way as the Mets have swung at the first pitch 5 straight batters. You think he was tipping off anything, Ray? I mean,
well, I think that he likes to get ahead of hitters. The league knows that. He comes in with that fastball. It's a sinker. When he's down in the strike zone, he's effective, but he got a couple of left-handed hitters that like the ball down, and Baerga and McRae, and when you get a hitter's strength with a pitcher's strength, sometimes a hitter wins.
His second tour of duty with the San Diego Padres, Scott Sanders.
A lot of sliders. He throws a lot of breaking balls.
Oh, look at Gilkey. McRae fire down to third base. He was already there by the time the pitcher's to the plate. Alert base running by Brian McRae.
Yeah, the only reason he had to slide was to slow himself down, but there's nobody around him. The third base coach tells him that he's all right. He makes the break after he gets that little secondary lead, and he could stand up if it wasn't for slowing himself down. But I'll tell you what, he's really igniting this ball club, leading off. Early in the year, there was a lot of speculation as to what was going on, Chris.
Well, I mean, just look at these numbers as Edgardo Alfonso now is a 2-0 pitch. I'll give it to you what McRae has done We said he's been on an extra base hit tear. 3-0 now. Sanders been high with everything. He has 48 hits since June 11th. So what, about 6 weeks? 15 doubles, 12 homers, 2 triples. So 29 of the 48 hits are extra base hits, only 19 singles. I mean, that's an extra base tear by not a guy who's a big-time power hitter.
That's almost 60%.
Yeah.
And the great Gene Mauch used to say 30% of extra base hits as your total hits would be outstanding. That's what he looked for.
Well, there's our new shortstop, the double switch. Sanders about 8. Andy 3 seats to the win. We'll bat 9. That's courtesy of Peter Gammons on Sunday in Baseball Tonight. I'll give credit where credit's due. Well, Sanders comes right in for Bochy and surrenders an immediate base on balls. And now here's John Olerud, who tattooed a double his last time up. Drove in a run with a sac fly in the first. The Mets are playing good baseball. They've won 7 of 9. They won 2 doubleheaders in the span of 3 days last week. Talking with Valentine before the game. Oh, rips it again. McRae scores, and the Mets have a 6-2 lead. Well, one definite Achilles heel for the Padres is middle relief. And you've seen a walk and a tattoo in the 2 batters Sanders has faced.
You can't hit a ball harder than this. This ball is hit so hard. Watch how quickly this ball gets by this pitcher's head. I mean, it is gone. You hardly see it in the screen. That ball's at him, it takes his head off. That's a beautiful swing. That, to me, that is the purest swing in baseball right now when you talk about balance, extension, and no wasted movement.
Here's Mike Piazza, who is 2 for 2 with a home run, a long home run to center field. And you know what Bruce Bochy is thinking. McRae's double, Olerud single, all with 2 outs. And far from being out of the woods. Bochy's club, 3 here in New York, 4 to Montreal. They don't go to Philadelphia till later on. Usually hit those 3 cities, but they only hit the 7-game road trip before they go back. But they're looking at losing the first 2 of this road trip. Piazza on a ball looked to be down and away. Little tapper that Barris throws over to Joyner, but not until the Mets allow the Padres to pull within 1 and hit him with a 3 spot to lead it 6-2. 7th, and Al Leiter has been staked now to a 4-run lead, which he held with the sacrifice. The Mets now with 11 hits, so it took him a while to get to Hamilton. Meanwhile, Leiter, tough.
Fastball away, fastball down the middle, fastball up, slider down and in, and then fastball up. Right here, just throwing the ball up and down, in and out, using all quadrants of the strike zone. He's pitching a heck of a ball game.
Came into the game with an ERA of 1.97. It might climb a tad, but again, second only to Greg Maddux in both leagues for ERA. And a swing at the first pitch is Andy Sheets. So Sheets, who was the hero in Sunday's win in 10 innings with a base hit against Houston. Sheets comes in on a double switch, and Bernard Gilkey and Lenny Harris have flip-flop positions in the outfield. Gilkey now to left, where he's more used to playing, and Harris goes to right. So Brian McRae's out there going, what? Wait a minute, I had Hundley, then I had Harris, now I got Gilkey. I got 3 left fielders here, and it's only the 7th inning. Meanwhile, Mel Rojas up and throwing. Bob Apodaca hoping that they could be days of wine in Rojas. Mel has had not a stellar stint as a Met, coming over in that deal with the Cubs. Bobby Valentine using quite a bit of his bullpen last night.
Well, Bobby has pretty much gone to McMichael and Cook to set up Franco for the last 2-3 weeks. Really the last month. Rojas being used, actually went 14 days without being used at all. At one stint a while back.
Well, last night in relief of Milmo, who went 5, he went Pulsifer, Wendell, Cook, and McMichael. Remember, the Mets had the day off Monday, so Franco's certainly fresh. Rojas, real fresh. He's real fresh. He's fresher than fish left out on the pavement for 2 weeks. That's fresh. And speaking of fresh, speaking of the fresh bullpen, started by, what, Joe Pignatano years ago in the Mets under Gil Hodges. We got corn. What do we got out there? Corn? I don't know. Probably tomato plants.
He has corn, squash, tomatoes. There's 4 or 5 things out there. And McMichael.
Meanwhile, Leiter fans Varys, and there's 1 out. While we're talking squash, Leiter trying to squash the Padres rally.
Well, again, another strikeout. Just a real good located fastball down an array right through Piazza. He's locating extremely well. And if there's ever a wrap on Leiter, we alluded to it early, it was his base on balls. And look there, just 103 pitches through 6 1/3, 2 base on balls.
Well, here's Tony Gwynn, who has ripped 2 doubles, 1 to left, 1 to right. Fastball up and way, ball 1. Leiter this year, Ray, has 1 10 strikeout game. Came against the Phillies at the end of May. And 1 9 strikeout game against Tampa Bay on the 10th of June. Off speed to Gwynn. Struck out 9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, getting Leroy Selman, Doug Williams, and Jimmy Giles 3 times each. It's almost football season, that's all. The wave going around, but Tony Gwynn looking at what kind of pitch he's going to get on 2-0. Answer, pretty good pitch.
Well, just to mention, to talk about what you had said about Tony, what he meant is his hands float toward the pitcher as he's moving. He's always been a front foot hitter. You're going to see him going out on the front foot. But he has to set his hands, and his hands have to go back. He can't bring them with him. If he brings his hands with him, they float, and he ends up pushing the bat. So you can actually hit on the front foot, which Hank Aaron did a lot. They kept his back barrel back, as it's permitting. Kept their hands back, and as you see Greg Vaughn there, who's had no trouble keeping his hands back this year. And as you alluded to, is a reason Tony is able to rectify that or see the movement in his hands.
No matter what happens at this at bat, it's 2-2. Fouls it up. I'd like to make a pronouncement here on ESPN. I'm going to pronounce Tony Gwynn's slump over.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this slump is over.
Well, you're going way out there, but watch how he floats, but his hands stay back. He's able to cut his swing off, and what it means by that, he can bring his hands into his body and still throw the bat barrel inside out and hit balls hard to left field. He doesn't spin that right shoulder out away from the ball.
Another base hit for Gwynn. Sheets to second base. Gwynn, for the 2nd night in a row, has 3 base hits. He's 109 shy of 3,000. Probably won't quite get there this year. I mean, I think he can get 100 hits in 2 months, but Tony will become the 22nd player in Major League history to get 3,000 hits.
Well, watch how he floats here, but his hands are back, and then he just stops himself with that front foot, gets real stiff on that side, keeps his head down as he always does, and drives the ball through on the ground. That's another reason he's always hit so well, is he hits the top part of the ball, hits a lot of line drives and ground balls.
Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach, will come out and talk to Leiter. Now, Greg Vaughn has hit him for a double. He's walked him, but he struck him out the last time. You let him go? You got a 4-run lead, Ray.
Well, I think what you do in this situation, if Mike Michael is fresh, you go ahead and bring the right-hander in.
That's what he's done. He made the move, and Al Leiter has pitched very, very well. Leiter stands to win for the 11th time against only 4 defeats. Standing ovation for Leiter. He leaves with a 6-2 lead. Back in New York, time for the Kelly Springfield key plays of the game. Behind the pitching of Al Leiter, Mike Piazza peppered a home run in the 4th. 3-0 lead became 3-2, and Joyner with a 2-run homer, but they walked the answer to get to Todd Hundley as the Mets answer with a 3 spot at the bottom of the 6th inning. Although Piazza overslid the bag, Mets had 2 of those 3 runs with 2 outs to restore the 6-2 lead, and Leiter stands to win for the 11th time this year. Wanted to continue, but he is gone now with 2 runners aboard here in the 7th inning in favor of Greg McMichael, who worked last night, and actually, Ray, got his 2nd save of the year working an inning and a 3rd. And he faces the very dangerous Greg Vaughn. If the Padres are going to get in it, it could be right off the bat, right here, of Greg Vaughn.
Yeah, Greg Vaughn 0 for 5 off of Greg McMichael. Greg McMichael features a changeup, a sinker, and a slider. Throws a lot of pitches, very soft in the strike zone. And his key is how he changes, or how well he's changing pitches.
Outside part of the plate. Diving is Baerga. He can't get it. Sheets will come around to score. It's a 6-3 game. Win to stop at second. So that wasn't the power muscle shot of Vaughn, but an RBI nevertheless. RBI number 90 in the year.
So a good piece of hitting with the infield bunching up the middle, trying for a double play just out of the reach from Carlos Baerga. Sinker down. Last year, he'd have never touched that ball. He'd have left that ball so badly. Baerga cannot get to the ball. It goes into right field, and Padres have something going.
Jim Leyritz, 1 for 2, including a double and a run scored. His last time up, he was driven home. Joyner hit a 2-run home run. Foul back. If you're tuning in late, Ken Caminiti, the night off, I believe, of course, is available for pinch hitting duty. Caminiti really hurting. Leyritz with his first start at third base in 2 years. Caminiti struck out 4 times last night. By the way, the Mets struck out the Padres 13 times last night. That's the most they've struck out in any of their games this year. And, of course, Leiter had 8 tonight. So, in 2 games, and we're still playing the second one, 21 Ks. Good pitching by Mets. Not great swinging at all times by the Pods. McMichael misses ball 1.
Already in 42 games this year. You see, as you mentioned, the 2 saves. Solid 3.8 earner run average. Nowadays, anything under 4. It used to be anything under 3.5, but it's jumped up about a half a run.
Well, he was here, he was gone, he was here. Way outside.
Key to hitting McMichael is just staying back and trying to hit the ball right back at him. You can't start jumping or he'll wear you out. He gives you a lot of his back knee, a lot of his shoulder. Short arms the ball, slings the ball, comes down from down under on occasion.
Way outside. 3-1. McMichael began the year as a Met, went to the Dodgers, came back in the Nomo deal. I'm wondering, was he here? What do you mean here, gone, here? He met twice this year. But he needs to settle down here against Leyritz. With Joyner on deck. He does not. He walks him, and now the tying run is aboard, and Wally Joyner, who has already homered for his 2nd homer here at Shea at 2 nights, is 1 swing of the bat away from giving the Padres a potential lead. He's 4 for 5 career against McMichael, which Bob Apodaca undoubtedly knows.
Well, you've got to bring in somebody right here. Base hit. Time of the ball game, you have to do something. Rojas on his way in from the mound.
Mel Rojas, who's had an intriguing 1.5-year stint as a Met against the dangerous hitting Wally Joyner. Do not go away.
Well, let's get you up to date on the Cards and the Brewers and the Roger Maris watch. Now this is Jeff Cirillo with a man on, putting this out for Milwaukee. That's off Bobby Witt in the 6th inning. Mark McGwire, 1 for 3, no home runs. He is staying at 45. It's 2-1 there in the 7th.
All right, Brian, thank you. A wild game there last night. Milwaukee, after all the home runs by McGwire and Langford, coming back with homers in the 9th themselves. But this is quite a spot for Mel Rojas. as he comes in. Look at the difference between lefties, Ray, as in Wally Joyner, who he's facing next, and then righties, who potentially the next man up is Ruben Rivera.
Well, he's got a split finger that's been exceptional, and left-handers have a tough time handling it because it moves away from them a lot like a screwball. Right-handers, he has a tough time getting it over for strike, and he reverts to being a fastball slider pitcher. He has a tough time getting the split finger over.
Joyner 5 for 7 in this 2-game series thus far against the Mets, and Rojas starts him with a ball high. So Al Leiter's sitting there going, you know, it wasn't supposed to be that hard. Michael came in, faced 2 batters, retired no one. Now, isn't this interesting? Well, this is also interesting. Steve Finley's on deck. He's a lefty.
I don't know if Bochy's actually looking at the stats, and a lot of times the stats will blow you away as a manager. You'll see something that just doesn't make sense to you. You think that...
I was going to say this, Joyner, well, I mean, Rojas isn't even close. So he's got, I mean, this has got to be, even though it's Wally Joyner, or do you let him sit on something? Make Rojas throw a strike?
No, you let him throw a strike. You can hit 3-1 just as well as you can 3-0. You just don't want to get fooled by some type of off-speed pitcher, although he should come with a fastball. You don't let him swing 3-0.
Remember, there's just one out here. There's the fastball, and the sarcastic cheer for the Met fans.
This has been Rojas' problem. After coming over from the Cubs, having some success, having a lot of success in Montreal as a setup man, when he got in that role as a closer, something changed. And it happens so often. You can pitch well in the 7th, 8th inning, pitch well without pressure, but when everything is on your shoulders, something changes.
Oh, there's a strike, and now he's come back with a full count to Joyner, with the bases full of Padres here in the 7th inning.
Well, that was a split finger there. He threw him a 3-0 fastball, then he came back with a split, got it in a good spot, 3-1, and that's what happens. That pitch appears to be a fastball for a strike, and he ends up moving out of the strike zone away.
Ripped down the line, but foul.
Another interesting thing, Tony Gwynn, the toughest in the league to strike out. Who is the 6th toughest in the league to strike out? Wally Joyner. So he does not punch out too often. There's evidence of that.
And oh, by the way, the bases are loaded. Ball 4, 6-4. Gwynn will score. Vaughn to third. Leyritz to second. Joyner to first. And Al Leiter's potential 11th win of the year is now in serious jeopardy. Yeah, the pinch runner at second now for Leyritz. Ed Giovanola, the one-time Brave, goes in to run for Leyritz, and I assume will stay at third base. And now Piazza has to go out to talk to Rojas, as Steve Finley is the pinch hitter batting for Ruben Rivera, and he certainly will stay in center field.
It's so difficult to get a perfect ball club. As we see Al Leiter there.
What are you going to do?
Well, what he's doing is he's got a little bit of nervous stomach, and he's trying to work off some of that energy. So he's tightening up his glove, but...
Pulsifer and Turk Wendell, who's number 99, in the pen. As Finley's up with the bases loaded. Oh, and he swings at an off-speed pitch. It may have been a little inside. Rojas crossed him up a little bit. Strike 1.
Well, Rojas used to have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. I've not seen it past 90 tonight. But again, that split finger disappears when he gets it in the right spot. He just looks like he has a tough time getting it where he wants to.
Pop up in the infield. The old fly roll as Lopez squeezes it, so Finley is gone. There are 2 outs. And Carlos Hernandez due up. However, Bruce Bochy is going to go down the bench again and go to his left-handed hitting catcher, Greg Myers. So it's just interesting that even though Rojas's numbers are the other way, the percentages normally say he's a righty, let's hit a lefty.
Some managers do not pay any attention to batter-pitcher matchup. And the reason for that is that the press will kill you. They'll run you out of town, as Hal McRae used to say, if you do something against the book and it doesn't work. But you have plenty here as positive evidence to leave right-handed hitters in there.
Well, Rivera struck out twice earlier tonight, and Hernandez was 0 for 3, the guy who's pinch hit for. So, it's not as if they've been lighting it up right. Ball 1 to Greg Myers. Been hurt much of the year. And a very important man to have back because he can give Hernandez a rest a little more often than he had had. Carlos caught almost all the year. Myers undoubtedly will stay in the game behind the plate. Because the only other catcher later, it's out of the game now.
Yeah, Rojas doesn't want to use his fastball either. He's throwing nothing but fork balls. Just doesn't trust his fastball.
2-0. Vaughn at third, Giovanolo at second, Joyner at first. 2 home here in the 7th. Ripped by Myers down the line. Harris will try and chase it down, but Vaughn scores. Giovanolo scores. Joyner's being wet. Oh, he stops halfway to third. He had some bluffs to throw back, and we have a 6-6 game.
That was a great read by Wally Joyner. Tim Flannery bringing him all the way. Almost a home, bringing him. Wally Joyner rounds third, picks up the throw, stops, and is able to shuffle back to third base. So credit that to Wally Joyner because Flannery had seen him. Watch this pitch now. Here's a fastball. The first one he's thrown this at bat. Moving away right there in the hitting zone. Myers rips it down the right field corner. Lenny Harris going hard for the baseball. Gets there quickly. Plays the carom fairly cleanly. Comes up. Hits the cutoff man. There Joyner sees it. Ends up going back way inside that line, giving no target for Piazza.
So Myers, as a pinch hitter, delivers. We're tied at 6, and a third straight pinch hitter is up. Mark Sweeney, who last year had 22 pinch hits. He's way off that pace this year. Sweeney, the pride of Framingham, Massachusetts.
And you know, people wonder all the time. They do that armchair quarterbacking and second guessing, but nobody knows his personnel more than Bruce Bochy, or for that matter, any major league manager. When they make a decision, they've made it when they've conferred with their coaches. They've looked at everything that they have to look at.
There's a strike to Sweeney, but how about the Mets bullpen, Ray, who've A, frittered away Leiter's potential win and the team's potential win. Faced 5 men. They've given up 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 runs, and they allowed 2 inherited runners to score. How do you spell relief? Not here. Foul back by Sweeney. Rojas ahead 1-2.
I was going to make a point about a perfect ball club, and this staff, this New York Mets staff, is the second best staff in baseball numbers-wise behind Atlanta. You have Leiter, Reed, Jones, Yoshi, Nomo, and Reynoso just coming back. But the problem is the bullpen is not very deep. You have Cook, who's usually 1 hitter or 2 hitters, and McMichael, who you saw tonight, and then Rojas, who struggles so much. And then, obviously, at the back end, Franco, who's always done a solid job.
Sweeney looking for a little bleeder. Johnny Wall has had a good year out there for Bruce Bochy. He's warming up. He'll be coming in. Sweeney batting in the 8th spot, but that was the pitcher spot with a double switch a half an inning ago. So Johnny Wall will be the new pitcher. Sweeney just missed it. Harris squeezes it, But the Bluebirds are out in Queens. A 6-2 Mets lead is now a 6-6 game. Hello. 7th inning stretch time in New York, but not a happy one for the Mets fans and everybody who came in and stayed in. Steve Finley is your new center fielder for the Pods. Eddie Giovanola is your new third baseman. Greg Myers is your new catcher. And Donnie Wall is your new pitcher. Basically, the only Padre remaining in the lineup is Nate Colbert.
He and Cito Gaston.
Yeah. Maybe Al Ferrara may still be in. Donnie Wall's done a good job. Pretty good strikeout pitcher, and his batting average against is one of the best on the staff.
Well, what I like about Donnie Wall is he's right around the plate. He started, he's long relief, he's now using setup.
This is Lenny Harris, who came in the game in Hundley's spot, and he grounds to Joyner over to Wall.
There, Mel Rojas just has lost his confidence. There's no question about it. This is a tough play, as we mentioned before. Tough place to play here in New York. If things don't go right for you, they are so merciless. Bob Apodaca goes down. Everybody tries to pump it up. But, you know, when you're struggling, you don't want anybody really to say anything to you. You try to work yourself out of it, but there's no way to do it except out there on the mound in competition. And Rojas he's lost his confidence. It happens to all of us at some time. You just have to rebuild it. Mark Roller's a great example.
Oh, yeah. Last night, what, 5 more runs given up by Rollers? Braves have some decisions to make. It's Carlos Baerga. Quick to double the last time up. This a shot to right field for his second hit of the night. Baerga, 2 for 4, is on with a 1-out single. Donnie Wall pitching last year for Houston. 2-5 last year. And now he'll face Bernard Gilkey, who is 1 for 3 with a single in the 4th. So as we said earlier, the Padres led by 3 runs last night, but the Mets won. Tonight, the Mets lead by 4 runs, and San Diego trying to turn the tables. We'll see. 6-6 game, which Al Leiter was cruising along with, but the bullpen of McMichael and Rojas not only couldn't shut the door, they gave the Padres a couple of spare keys, giving up 4 runs, and here we are on the bottom of the 7th. Wall keeping an eye on Baerga, who had dive in the first a couple of bats ago. That dirt settling in nicely on this warm and humid night in New York. You know, the game time temperature this afternoon, temperatures in the 90s here in the New York area. Gilkey ahead of that pitch. 1-2.
Good slider by Donnie Wall. He doesn't throw real hard, just moves the ball around in the strike zone. Elevates the fastball with 4-seamer, sinks it. About 86, 87, certainly not overpowering. Setting up away, probably another slider.
One thing about the Padres bullpen, now last year, of course, they just imploded. With an ERA, the bullpen alone was 4.99. This year, going into this series, is 3.88. But right now, Wall is being touched for a base hit by Gilkey in a hustle, and Baerga, not having enough dirt on the jersey, gets some more with a head-first slide in the 3rd. So the Mets bullpen opening the door, but Donnie not exactly acting like a Wall here.
No, he's not. A sinker down. Gilkey hits the ball right off the end of his bat. Baerga here slows down just a little bit. Wasn't sure, and then he kicks it in gear, and I think he slowed down just to try to hit the bag with his inside foot.
So now the Mets in business. with runners at the corners and my man, Luis Lopez, at the plate. Lopez hit an RBI single in the 3-run sixth that seemingly put the Mets in control of the game. With their pinch hitter extraordinaire, Matt Franco, on deck in the pitcher spot. Wall on the inside corner for a strike.
And in most situations, you have first and third in. They're going to come to the plate on a ball that's not a sure double play, short and second base, back in normal double play depth, and be able to turn a double play on any ball that's hit about average speed.
Lopez with a long fly to center field. This is Steve Finley there, but the throw comes into, cut off by Joyner, and now they have the runner in a pickle. And a careless bit of running by Gilkey, and a heads-up play by Wally Joyner. The Mets do take the lead on Lopez's textbook fly ball. The lack of textbook running ends the rally. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by AT&T. It's all within your reach. Well, the Mets have regained the lead here as we head to the top of the eighth, 7-6 on a textbook sacrifice fly ball by, well, that's Lenny Harris, by Luis Lopez, but Finley's throw alertly cut off properly by Wally Joyner.
Well, actually, Gilkey did the right thing because Joyner is the cutoff man. Nobody's going to be covering first, but he just went way too deep. What you do is you go just short of halfway, and when the ball gets by the cutoff man, then you ease on down to second base. But he just got way too deep in there at second base, and Joyner hustling back and getting in behind him, backdooring him.
The new pitcher for the Mets is the left-hander, one time and maybe still might be again, young hope Bill Pulsifer, who they tried to send back to the minors, but they found out that they couldn't do it without potentially having to send through waivers. So sometimes the system works. He stays in the majors. Now, here's the odd thing. If the Mets keep this lead, they're 22 hits in 13 2/3, not good. But here's the odd thing, Ray. Mel Rojas gets the win if the Mets hold on to this lead.
That just goes to show you that, as Peter Pasquarelli and I were talking in the break, that middle relievers records really mean nothing.
Andy Sheets ground ball to Lopez. Throw across the diamond, and there is one out. Pitching summary brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Paint and Wallpaper Stores. Hey, Al Leiter was on the verge of opening his mark to 11-4. Struck out 8, one of his better performances of the year. I know 4 runs for a guy with a 1.97 ERA was not as good as usual, but he pitched very, very well after Hamilton was tattooed. Neither will figure in the decision.
Well, those 4 runs came with McMichael failing to do his job. He actually left with only 2 runs charged to him and responsible for the 2 base runners.
And Marty Quality Aronoff, quick with the stats. Leiter's ERA, when you read the paper tomorrow morning, 2.16.
That's pretty
Still
good.
Pretty good. The top of the order, Kilby Alvarez, up for the 5th time, yet to come through with a base hit. 2 Ks. Tony Gwynn on deck. Then we get to go to the Tony Gwynn page, don't we? Because we want to tell you something.
Yeah, we do.
It's just fun when you get to the media guide and you read the pages on a player like Tony Gwynn, because you're really reading the history of baseball when they put him all time and they see all the things he's done with batting titles and base hits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Vargas is struck out for the 3rd time tonight. There's 2 outs. Well, we told you Tony Gwynn, who has 2 doubles and a single tonight, now has 2,891 hits. Here's the pitch first.
Just a fastball right down the middle. I mean, there's not much to say about that. Just right down the middle. Twice Kilvio caught looking. Looks like he's looking for a breaking ball.
Now, this year, Tony began the year with 2,780, began in 38th place. He is now in 29th place. That's foul, so we get to read the list. Passing Wade Boggs, George Sisler, George Twisted Sisler, Charlie Gehringer, Brooks Robinson, Jesse Burkett.
Don't know Jesse. That's the only one I don't know.
I think you know this one. Babe Ruth.
I know him. Yeah.
Mel Ott.
My goodness.
Frankie Frisch. And Zach Wheat. Only, I tell you who's 26th. Rogers. Oh, Gwynn to left field. Back it goes. Another hopper off the wall. Tony Gwynn with his third double of the night is 4 for 5. He might get to 3,000 tonight.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Will you back me up in my assertion?
I'm going to back you. I think he's out of that slump.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just tuned in, the slump is over.
Look at this swing. Look how he stays on that ball. And you don't realize that Tony Gwynn has power. He doesn't hit a lot of home runs. He's hit 20 twice in his career high 26. But he drives the ball in the gap. He's one of those people that hits the ball hard, 370 feet consistently. Hits a lot of doubles.
Hey, how about this, Ray? 34th time that Tony Gwynn has had 4 hits in a game. The way this game's going, he'll come up again as John Franco's up. He's done it. He's had 5 hits 8 times. He's had 6 hits once, but 34th time he's had 4 hits. He is in this series 7 for 9. Hello.
Well, let's see. We have, what, 55, 60 games left, 4 games. He could get to 3,000.
Tonight. Bob Apodaca will go talk with Bill Pulsifer with the dangerous Greg Vaughn due up. Vaughn came through with an RBI single in the 7th. Remember, Ken Caminiti is still available, and he will come out to hit for Giovanola, who is in the next spot.
Well, that makes it a little tougher.
Yeah.
On Bobby Valentine. You could always pitch around Greg Vaughn, but you don't want to pitch around him right into that big bat of Ken Caminiti, and I think that's why you make the change and go to somebody to get Vaughn out.
Day off Monday, didn't pitch Tuesday. I know it's the 8th inning, but John Franco coming in to face the heavy metal of the... All the wheels are turning with Vaughn and Caminiti coming up for the Padres, and the ace closer in the 7-6 Mets lead over the Padres. John Franco coming in. Don't forget, we have the Yankees and the Angels coming up next. If they have a game as exciting as this, you've just found yourself with 6 great hours of baseball tonight on ESPN. Here he is, long-time reliever here in the New York Mets. One of the few members, lefties, of the 300 save club for relievers, or starters for that matter. John Franco.
And his number's not quite as impressive. He's always been less than 1 hit per 9 innings there. Just a tad over. Not as many strikeouts, but still that same Lion's heart comes in there in a ball game here, having to get more than 3 outs.
Our in-game box score for the Padres. There's Tony Gwynn's 4 for 5, including 3 doubles, which ties him with Lou Brock with 486. What's that, 42nd on the all-time list?
Yes.
Greg Vaughn, 2 for 3. Joyner, 2 for 3 with a 2-run home run. So the Padres were down 6-2. Now they're just down by 1, 7-6. And Tony Gwynn, as we said, moving up the ladder. He may get to, he may get to 2,900 hits by the end of the night, Ray. that he could do, right?
Hey, if we're here a while.
Here is Greg Vaughn. 37 homers, 90 RBIs, a 300 hitter. Gwynn on second base. Well, this is actually the 4th time tonight that Tony's been standing on second base.
And Greg Vaughn 1 for 2 with 1 home run lifetime against Franco.
It's like the old days, Ray, bringing the reliever in the 8th inning. I mean, to stop it. Franco starts him out with a strike, and isn't that good news to Bobby Valentine and Bob Apodaca and the Mets fans?
Yeah, 3-4 outs is not tough to get. The other day, Bobby brought him in trying to get 5 outs. That gets a little difficult. These guys are juiced up. That adrenaline flows. It makes it a big part of their makeup.
I went a low and away the Piazza at the backhand. The third time he's come in the 8th inning this year. Of course, it is with 2 outs in the 8th. Franco with 379 lifetime saves. That's number 3 on the all-time list.
We're going to see some exciting games down the stretch, Chris. And obviously, that Yankees-Angel game, all meaning something. And it's really, for me, having been in the game for the last 6 years, broadcasting the other 2 or 3 out of baseball, it's been the most fun year for me watching the game.
Franco, fastball outside corner to Vaughn, 1-2. So what does Vaughn dial in on now here, Ray?
Well, he has to try to protect now, and the best pitch that John Franco has against right-handed hitters is that screwball changeup. So I would try to sit on a ball away, try to think fastball away, drive it to right field, and put me on the changeup. John probably will come inside one time before he goes out there. No, he's going right out there.
Right down there with Piazza Smothers, 2-2. Hey, one of the all-time save leaders against the guy who was an MVP candidate for sure this year. Had a 1-run game. One team way ahead in their division, the other team trying to scrap their way into the lead in the wild card race. What we call good baseball here on a hot summer's night. Count is full. That was the inside one. He went the other way.
And now he'll come back with that changeup away, and if it's not a perfect pitch, he'll move right on to Chimanetti. He's not going to throw him a fastball here. He's going to either throw him a cutter inside or that screwball changeup away.
You called it. Vaughn went fishing what would have been ball 4. And instead, Vaughn is struck out for the second time tonight. Quinn is stranded at second. The Mets lead is still 7-6. Bottom of the 8th, the Mets lead at 7-6 over the Padres. And by bringing John Franco in, Ray, in the 8th inning, yes, you needed to get Greg Vaughn with the tying run at second base. You now have a very rare opportunity to see your closer at the plate. Now, we first looked out and said, wait a minute. He's pinch hitting back Franco for John Franco?
Well,
and it is John.
Right, it is John. And what happens is you've already got your best defense on the field. You don't make a change, a double switch situation, because you cannot afford to lose your your closer. So you just sacrifice that out. And that was ugly.
Well, John Franco, for his career, it's his first at bat in 2 years.
Check this out, though. My goodness.
Well, he hasn't been up to the plate since '96.
It's pretty tough to find your way to home plate when you hadn't been up there since '96.
Well, he said, hey, I'm now 3 for 32, and I've been in the big leagues how long? I've been up 32 times?
15 years.
Hey, his job is to get 3 outs, and who cares what that was?
I mean, that's the whole point.
Don't get hit by a pitch.
You don't worry about anything but right now, and when Bobby made that decision to put him in the ball game, that was to get him out of that inning. He knows which he did. 1 run's enough if they shut him down. He's got his best pitcher out there to do it with 3 outs to get. And sometimes it just works out that way.
Ryan McRae has had a huge night. We told you about, since June 11th, about 60% of his hits are extra base hits, including a pair of doubles tonight. And this is his 4th hit of the night. Boy, the top of the order with Ryan McRae. He has just been really alive. And he's hitting what? About 420, 430 here in the last couple of weeks.
Well, he's a very smart hitter. I've always liked Brian McRae. I talked to his daddy, Hal, a couple years ago when he was coaching for me. I'd like to have acquired him. He plays hard. He plays the game correctly. And there's not a finer young man in all of baseball. and he knows how to play this game, gives his heart all the time, and I'm glad to see him playing on a winning ball club. He's a big reason for it.
In the big picture, I know it's only July 29th as Edgardo Alfonso, 0 for 3 and a walk, is up against Donnie Wall. The Giants have lost tonight in Montreal 6-0.
That's what I'm talking about, smart. There's a pitch out right there. McRae started to go, read the pitch out, and was able to hold back. A lot of guys were going on, run right on through that, and run into an out. Watch how the runner breaks here, starts to break. He looks and sees a pitch out, stops, and that's just super baseball intelligence right there.
Alfonso skies it to center field where Steve Finley is there. And makes the play. McRae back to first base. There are 2 out for John Olerud. What I started to say is the Giants are set up by Dustin Hermanson of the Expos. 6-0 tonight. A very quick départé for the Giants out of Le Grandot. So the Mets, if they win it, leapfrog over San Francisco and would be the second-place team behind the Cubs in the wild card chase. Cubs are ahead early, 2-0 at Arizona in the second inning.
Good time to run here. 2 outs, 2 big bats up. Try to get somebody in scoring position.
Off-speed pitch to Olerud, who is 2 for 3 and a sac fly as a ball.
And has a very good eye. Will take you deep in the count. Will allow you to steal. Brian McRae, good base stealer. 18 for 24 for this season.
McRae had one earlier tonight in the 6th inning for his 18th stolen base. Olerud hit the ball hard the last couple of times up. 7 runs, 14 hits, no errors for the Mets. 6 runs, 11 hits, no errors for the Pods. There goes McRae. This time Myers was ready, and he guns him down. So he stole a base before on Carlos Hernandez, but Myers guns him down. So we head to the 9th inning.
Well, Garrett Anderson has a 25-game hitting streak, ties him with Rod Carew. Rod Carew looking on. It doesn't hurt having Rod around. Yanks and Angels coming up next after this one's done at Shea. Chris?
All right, Brad, thank you. 7-6 Mets, an entertaining Wednesday night game, Ray. Not exactly your crisp, although, you know, it started out a crisp game between Leiter and Hamilton. Mets got a lead. Pods came back. Mets got a big lead. Managers moved. Some worked, some didn't. And now John Franco is here in the 9th. And now remember, Ken Caminiti was in the on-deck circle to bat for Giovanola with runners aboard. But I don't believe he has any other non-pitcher on the bench other than Caminiti. So Giovanola is going to bat. So would you hit him anyway?
No, you have to save Caminiti for the pitcher spot. Because that's going to be, if 2 runners get on, you have Caminiti there for the pitcher spot.
Giovanola, who went in for Leyritz as a pinch runner, back in the 7th inning. Flies it to left field. Gilkey is there, and there's 1 out. 1-run games. Padres 23-11. That's part of the reason why you're 32 above 500. Games won or lost in the final at bat. They're 16-5.
And you know, this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. You see where the Padres ended up getting 4 runs. That's when the pinch hitters were thrown out there. Finley, Myers, Sweeney. And now you get to the last inning and you don't have pinch hitters. You have your left-handed lineup against a left-handed pitcher. But had Bochy not made those moves, that 4th spot would not have been there, and the game's over.
Well, here's Wally Joyner. I mean, he's hit against, you know, many a lefty before. Joyner with a homer tonight. Wally 2 for 3, 2 RBIs, giving him 5 hits in the 2 games thus far. Teams go at it again tomorrow night. pitch count against Bobby Jones. Yankees, Angels coming up when we're done. Franco wanted that pitch, but missed it. It's 2-1. Steve Finley on deck. Then Greg Myers, who had a big pinch hit double, 2-run double, to tie the game in the 7th. Then your pitcher spot, which would be Caminetti, if they get that far, but it's 2-2. Falling in front of Brian McRae, and Wally Joyner just continues to rip the Mets pitching. He's on base for the 4th time tonight, 3 hits and a walk. And so Wally becomes the tying run aboard, and here's Steve Finley. Wally Joyner having a big, big year for the Pods, keeps them right in it. Oh, fastball, and Finley trying to rip.
That was a pretty good hack. Lord Retman said that Finley pulling too many balls of late this whole year. Normally, he's very quick inside, can get to that fastball, but he's been hooking the ball foul. He says he has about 15 home runs foul just outside the fair pole. Finley 4 for 8 against John Franco.
This one is down the right field line, but it's going to drop foul.
Sounds like he hit it on his thumbs. That ball, it took that ball forever to get down there.
Finley, much of the year, was below 200. Or in the early part of the year, as good as the Padres played.
Yeah, he did. He had that ball way down on the barrel, and again, that ball was probably 3 or 4 inches in off the plate, and he could not lay off of it.
Inside, Finley fought that one off. Stay alive. Greg Myers on deck. One of the biggest trades of the 90s, and that big, huge trade that brought Finley and Caminetti over here from Houston, Garrett Bell and others going over to the Stros a few years back. Shortstop, Lopez, who's been the man all night, bobbles it, trying to turn 2. He knew he had to hustle with that.
He should have just gone for 1 out. He wanted to make the double play. He charged that ball, and the ball actually got in on him. Just like a pitcher, if you get too close to a ball and it gets you in between hops. See how he moves over here and kind of jumps. All he has to do is shuffle over there, backhand that ball, make the play to second base, and get 1 out. He just tried to do too much.
So an error on Lopez. You saw Ordonez a minute ago, who's probably come back and play a couple of games. It's now for Joyner at second, Finley at first, Greg Myers at the plate, and Caminetti on deck. Fastball high, ball 1. As they say in the movies, the plot has thickened. Myers with a 2-run double down the right field line. In a pinch hitting appearance, last time up to tie the game. Now is the count in his favor, 2-0.
Well, this has had the feeling for me like almost a mini playoff game. Has it you, Chris?
Well, with all the moves. I mean,
yeah.
Not every play has been unbelievably sharp, but certainly with 26 hits and 13 runs, the hitters have been sharp, and the dangerous Ken Caminetti in the on-deck circle.
And the Padres here in the 9th inning down to their last player, and Caminetti on deck.
In there for a strike. Barely.
Yeah, it looked a little high.
Barely. Yankees, Angels. The big E coming up. Thorny and Kevin Kennedy. Been a good one here, though. You're right. This is a playoff feel with the moves, and now Franco battles back. It's 2-2.
And watching the Padre bench from up here, Chris, they're very into the game. They're reacting on every pitch. And that's why this club has established, as you said, that demeanor, that attitude, that belief in themselves.
Count is full. Hey, I got to ask you something. I don't mean to be trite. How could this not have a postseason feel with Ray Knight and Mookie Wilson at Shea Stadium together? If not together, at least in the same yard. How could this not be postseason?
I'm interested to see if he holds the runners here. I believe he will. You can't afford to get a man thrown out if the hitter strikes out.
Myers back to Franco. Lopez. Double play. The Mets win it. They couldn't turn it the last time. They turn the double play this time as Franco induces Myers with the comebacker. Hey, this was a good game, Ray.
It was. I enjoyed it, buddy.
The Mets and Padres seesaw back and forth with the Mets finally winning it 7-6 and Caminiti not having a shot. Remember, the Yankees and the Angels coming up next. Thanks for watching the first half of our Wednesday Night Baseball. It's been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Ray Knight and all of us here at Shea Stadium, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching. Mets beat the Padres 7-6.